Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the BlkWmnAnimator. Come back to me with another video. And in this video, I have Leon Gittens. Welcome.
Hello, welcome. I appreciate you having me on here.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Leon Gittens. Born and raised in England, and I am a character animator.
All right. So my first question, you're from England. Where specifically are you from, and how was it growing up? What's your origin story?
Okay, so yes, I'm from England, not London, which is what most Americans seem to think. So it's something I'm always correcting. But I'm from
Mhm,
Dudley, which is like 10 miles from Birmingham, 100 miles from London. It's a
mhm.
small city. It's nicknamed the Black Country, but not because there's black people in there. It's nothing to do with that. It's called the Black Country because of all the factory work that used to take going over
Okay.
there, and then obviously the sky would be dark and
So
black.
basically, New Jersey.
I guess that'd be the comparison, yes. But so yes, born and raised in the UK. Parents of Jamaican and Bajan, Bajan being Barbados. Three siblings, and yeah, I ever since I can remember, I was already into art in that aspect.
Mhm,
So I was like my parents brought me one of these books that had like the grids, like there'd be a picture on the one side and a grid on the
mhm,
other side, and it was a cow, and I guess I did it pretty well. And they was
mhm.
like, "Oh, this guy's gonna be an artist, I guess," and they kind of just kept feeding me from there. So as far as childhood, like any other, well, almost any other, loved watching cartoons on TV. But
Mhm.
my biggest passion, I guess, I got that from my father, was kung fu movies. Wake up
Nice.
every
Yeah.
morning watching kung fu movies, and me and my brothers would then pretend to do the moves, try and kill each other when we were younger, kind of thing. So that was
I don't
kind
know
of
what it is about the black diaspora in that time, but all the black men wanted to do the kung fu.
well, I think there's layers to that, and I think
Uh-huh.
it's to do with like storytelling, like because
Hmm.
a lot of the martial arts movies were always the character that wasn't supposed to make it. He wasn't any good at anything, and then that
Hmm.
story of making it and being, the what's the word? Not the loser. I'm trying to think of the other term.
Underdog.
Underdog. There you go. The
Yeah.
underdog, and then being the hero at the end. So some of the reason some of our black people and they really connect with that storyline.
I wonder if it's like, for that time it's like kung fu movies, and then for younger generations like anime.
Yeah, it's funny because even when did I discover anime? Because I got into anime pretty young too.
Hmm.
It was called manga back then because that was the comics, but we didn't differentiate between the two. It was just
Yeah.
like manga was coming on TV, and back home we only had four channels, and there would be
Yeah.
a specific channel. If it was channel four that would play some of these mangas, and then the whole burnt VHSs would go around, and friends would start passing. Hey, you should watch this manga. You should watch this manga. So
Yeah.
I got into that pretty young too. But I do think it is today's come through is probably is like anime for sure.
Mhm. So what are some of your best childhood memories?
Best childhood memories. I want to say just a lot of the things my parents gave us. Like as far as like we were one of the few we would go camping in the summers. We did like a summer school all the time with the family. Um, I just remember just always being outside, like
Mhm.
that fun, like just being outside, running amok, running with my friends. Um, like if I could just capsulate it, it would just be like living free.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing we did. Like not like now where everybody's on their phones and social media and all that stuff. We were just outside, just running the
Mhm.
streets, like traveling miles on a bus to go get into whatever kind of trouble we were doing. Like that was
Yeah.
something we would do. Like there was no boundaries as far as like, you know, my parents always said you can't be in the house all day. You got to get out and go do
Yeah.
something. So I think that helped me who I am today as far as like I had my hand in different things. Like I said, I did camping, I did climbing, I did abseiling, I did all those things that usually not typical, I guess,
Mhm.
for black kids. But I was around a community that we did that, and
Yeah.
also, um, I don't know if it's a great childhood memory then, but when I look back at it now, it makes a lot of sense. Like even learning about black like heroes. Like we used to have this
Hmm.
thing called Saturday school, which I
Hmm.
hated because everybody else on Saturday is out playing, and literally I want to say it was like from 9 a.m. to like 4 p.m. We were in Saturday school, just learning about Black history,
Oh,
Marcus Garvey, the
nice.
all 9 yards. Which is interesting when I look at that today. That doesn't exist, and then you see the whole culture thing, like coming out here to the states. There's I was really shocked at that didn't happen as much as I thought it would, as
It
far as
probably
like,
happened during the same time you did, but just
and
when you
then
came to the States,
it
it was
even
gone.
uh, pretty that could be true. That could be also
Yeah,
because again, my parents are very conscious. Like I said, my mother was a teacher, and
yeah,
my dad was is a Rastafarian, and being a Rastafarian in England at that time was a thing. So not
yeah.
the best thing to do. So I had those experiences, and again, even younger, my dad was a drummer, so I used to play.
Hmm.
He taught me how to play a drum, but I also used to play a steel band. For
Oh,
those who know what a
nice.
steel band is the
Hmm.
Jamaican instrument made out of rubbish bins or oil drum.
Hmm.
So I remember playing in a band. We were called the Black Sensations, very young age, and we were playing at one of our gigs, and there was a president from Uganda there randomly, and then he was like, "I would love to you guys to come play in Africa." We
Hmm.
was like, "Okay, sounds great." 2 years later, we're on tour in Kenya and Uganda
Nice.
playing the steel band. And I always remember, I can't remember the band, but there was a big American rock band there, and we shared the same hotel as them. And I was like, yo, like, and I'm what, barely a teenager at a point. I think I'm like 13 or 14, but maybe 15. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was, that was a big eye opener for me because
Yeah.
what they were showing on TV and then what I was seeing was two different things.
Right.
And it was like I just remember that reminded me that okay, don't believe everything you hear because
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. And again, I just remember being in Kenya and I was like, they got these. I remember, which I shouldn't have been. We were at a club, but we were celebrities, I guess. And they had these like big screen TVs in the club, and this is 95 maybe. I never
Hmm.
seen a TV this big, but in the club, there was all the that all the best technology I'd never seen before, as far as like the way the city was built. But
Yeah.
yet they always advertised as it being this poor,
Yeah.
poor continent. But it's I mean yes, everywhere has its poor places, but that was all they pushed. So that was very eye
Right.
opening for me. And yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. With the school thing, I know way back in the day in America, there was like the freedmen schools,
Hmm.
but I'm sure there have been different iterations. Like for example, with the Black Panthers, like a lot of stuff that we have in America today, they don't get credit for, but like
Hmm.
they started the free breakfast and free lunch program, and that's
Okay.
been integrated into the school system. And it's like that was the Black Panthers first.
Ah, interesting. It's funny because I always get those because I have three kids. I always get those emails. The free breakfast, free lunch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so like there is some other stuff that I can't remember right now, but
Hmm.
like a lot of that stuff started with the Black Panthers, but they just don't get credit.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned it a little bit, but what is your cultural makeup? And that's not only to say like what's your ethnicity, but also what is the culture of where you grew up and like the uniqueness of where you're from.
So in Dudley, at the time, it was mostly islanders, Caribbean, so Jamaicans, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago. So like I said, my mother's side all Jamaican, father's side all from Barbados, and that was like our community. That was everybody was from that makeup. Their grandparents migrated to England, because to get the better life.
Mhm.
That
Was
story.
that the Ren Rush or is it different?
Yeah, it's part of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and just trickled down. But yeah, you either came to England or to Canada. That was like the two main places where
Mhm.
Jamaicans and islanders went, and so that was my childhood was pretty much that community going to like little dancehall
Mhm.
clubs in community centers. Um, every Sunday you would go to your grandparents' house and have all the elders come and hearing them tell like their folk stories is something
Mhm.
now that I'm going back on because I'm we probably get that, but I'm creating my own show and stuff. But there's so much history and
Yeah.
stories that I remember my grandparents telling me. And I'm trying to like go back and remember some of them and ask questions. But that was like a thing every Sunday. All the elders come round, they got their rum and whiskey, whatever maybe, and they're telling all these stories.
Yeah.
like ghost stories. Like we call them Duffies, which is ghost, and the whole Obi and all those kind of like stories that you probably shouldn't be telling your children, but it was no,
Yeah,
but it was just normal and like that kind of stuff. But yeah,
yeah,
that and my community was based around obviously a black community as far as like Jamaicans and all that stuff. But we were just like any other, not any other story, but back then, we had to be careful how we maneuvered because we were in England. We have skinheads over there, like
yeah,
NF. So that was like my childhood was being chased by NF after going to the
hmm,
community center or hanging out at my friend's house, knowing
yeah,
which route to go home. And it's funny now, like back then it was just life
yeah,
and it was like this thrill. But when I look at it now, it's like that was a very like dangerous time. But you
yeah,
don't know any better because that's just your normal day of living. Like having to know what football team is playing, because if that football team lost, you might get beat up by said fans. So you gotta navigate which bus to catch home, all that kind of stuff. That was
yeah.
just like normal fun growing up, I guess.
Right, right. And that's what's crazy. Like,
Mm.
because I'm aware of like the stuff that's going on over there now of like people
Yeah,
being chased.
it's funny when I saw that I was like, 2024. This is what we're doing. It's wild. Like yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
my parents call me and she tell me yeah, this and that's happening over here and over here, and I found out a bit at it later because it's funny. Like Americans seem to be up to speed on everything that's going on, crazy. All my friends, are your parents okay? And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And then they're telling me about. It's like, oh, okay, let me check up on them. But yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
wild.
and then with the sports team thing, that's what's crazy about in the states of like if we protest, which the people destroying stuff is not always the people protesting. But
Hmm.
then if like a hockey team win, sometimes if it's winning, not even losing, they'll like destroy property and nobody
Hmm.
talks about it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, like even funnier on a weird note, my son is 10 now.
Uh-huh.
Um, before the pandemic, I went back to England. Took him with me. He was about 4 at the time, and I
Hmm.
took him to a football game.
Hmm.
And I realized at that age, I was like probably 30 something. That was my first time ever going to a professional football match
Hmm.
at that age, and it was just weird. Like even when I sat there, I was like, I've never been to a football match in my entire life before, and my son who's 3 gets to experience this, and he was having fun and like hearing the cheers. But it was just something that like I just like it kind of like went to my psyche. I'm like, wow, like this is a new experience for me having
Yeah.
to be here when I back in the day I would never have thought of going to a football match ever.
Hmm.
Oh, for those who don't know, you call it soccer. I detest that term. It is football.
I just would like to make point that everybody used to say soccer and then y'all
It's-
stopped. But anyway.
when, well, not your where we grew up, always been football.
But I'm saying the origination of the term, even probably before you were born, people
Hmm.
said soccer. So
Yeah, see, I've
I
heard
just
that.
I just like to mention that because people act like like Americans just decided to say soccer. Like everybody used to say it, and then they try like then we
I
just
wanna,
kept going.
I do want to check those sources because I know that has been popping around lately. And I'm like, people like to conveniently pop up stuff, and I'm like, let me fact check that. Again, ever
Go
since going to
ahead,
Africa, ever since going to Africa, I don't trust everything I hear.
go ahead and fact check it.
Cool,
All
cool.
right. So what is your favorite custom or tradition from your culture, or like your favorite custom or tradition from your family in particular growing up?
So my favorite was Sunday dinner. So
Hmm.
again, Sunday dinner was, rice and chicken, rice and fish, jerk, ackee saltfish, fried dumpling. That's pretty much, the food that we would have on a Sunday. And that was when, as a family, you all sit down together
Hmm.
and, eat and converse. Um, I think that was when times were simpler because the world was smaller.
Yeah,
And now it's like, it's hard to do that now. It's like when's the last time you sat down and had a family dinner?
yeah,
Like in today's age, because now like I said, the world's smaller, everybody's traveling, we can do this like an interview over online.
yeah.
So those are my favorite times. And I think it definitely hit me like once my grandmother and grandfather passed away,
Hmm.
because they were like the core of the family. It was kind of like
Right.
I felt like a part that was lost. And again, it's one of them things that is one of my best childhood and grown up memories was as a culture, like sitting around the table and everybody bringing food and just sharing stories, what their week and what they're going through. So
Yeah,
that's definitely one of my favorite, parts of my culture that I miss and enjoy.
nice. I was gonna ask you earlier. Did you watch Small Axe? Yeah, it was like a
Interesting.
little anthology where it was about the Windrush like stuff,
Hmm.
and it was cool. Like I watched it, and it's definitely for you all.
Yeah.
But you know, I can still enjoy it, obviously. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because I remember that was a big thing. Like they started really talking about the moon rush and really trying to put it at the forefront, um,
Mhm.
for the rest for everybody to see. Because like it's part of history that wasn't spoken about or talked about enough.
Yeah, so it's like a few episodes of different storylines, and it was really cool to. I like watching stuff about the diaspora and like learning
Hmm.
about you all's culture and what.
It's very interesting you bring that up because that's something that is something I am trying to do
Mm-hmm.
and explain to a lot of my like contemporaries or people that I work with or trying to work with. So one of the things that I've been coming across is I don't think everybody understands that there's different POVs. Like the
Mm-hmm.
only black person isn't in America
Hmm.
when it comes to media, and I
Yeah.
think and I understand it because you're around what you're around and what you see is what you see, right? But it's
Hmm.
like when you change their perspective, it's kind of a shock at first that they don't realize that there are other black people in the world which have different stories to tell.
Hmm.
And like I'm always trying to like show people other shows. Like for instance, the most recent one, Supercell, is
Yeah.
an interesting one because I'm kind of mad but happy at the same time because I have sickle cell trait
Yeah.
carrier
Oh,
and
okay.
it was just interesting. I was like, why didn't I think of this idea? But it's but at
Yeah.
the, but at the same token, it was like I remember coming over here. It's like not many people knew what sickle cell was. Even doctors, like like
Okay.
like back home, we have a card that tells us like what type of sickle cell we have, like this long-winded name that
Oh,
makes no
dang! It's
sense.
like mad specific.
Yeah, it's very specific. So I remember that I was taught I have to carry that around with me because if I get in an accident, they know what blood type I am, kind
Right.
of thing.
Right.
And then I ended up losing that in a flood. So then I went to the doctor, said, "Hey, I need to get a new sickle cell card." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, and I was like, "A sickle cell card is a thing," and they was like, "Yeah, we don't do that here." And it might have changed now, but I just remember that, and I was like, "That's shocking." So
Yeah.
I go back home and do all that stuff. But yeah, is but yeah, back to the thing about like just that there's different stories of black people and POVs all over the world, and
Hmm.
I'm trying to push that we need to hear those as well. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. When Supercell came out, I have a friend with Supercell. Like, what's this? Have you heard about it?
me and my kids binge watch that thing. We to 5 in the morning, and then
Yeah.
I had to get up at 6:30 to do something. I remember, so I had no sleep. But it was a well done show. I'm like really proud that show exists.
Yeah. I feel like a big thing is that the Black American media is exported to everywhere, so that's why it's in the forefront. But also, like 10 to 15 years ago, when I was like trying to look for, like, I remember I joined a Facebook group which was like African animation Facebook group, but it but I didn't find what I was looking for because I guess there was like a concentration on creating other people's stories or like trying to get into this system where you're creating the stories for them. And so I'm like trying to go watch their stories, and I'm like, y'all creating stories about mice, like what? and then if you go to YouTube, if you it's better now, but 10, 15 years ago, you try to look up like African stuff, and it's just all about safaris because that's the lens of the other people. They just want to go see animals. Like,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Facebook group. Like I didn't realize that there weren't that many other black animators until I started working out here. It wasn't a thing I was conscious of. I knew I was always, the only the black person in the studio per se, but it was like I was too busy trying to make sure I worked hard. Do I need to do? I wasn't thinking about that. And
yeah,
then when
yeah,
that Facebook group came about, and I was like, huh? And I was like, oh, there's other black animators. I didn't even like. It didn't even come across. I wasn't even thinking about it. So I found that funny. I was laughing at myself like I didn't even think about that. I just figured not many people do animation anyway, and I'm just happy to be the one weird black guy that does it. So I'm just gonna
Right.
continue on. Um, yeah, it's interesting.
When you were back in England, you were a point guard. You did semi-pro, and then you came to the states to play college basketball. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, that's right. That was a part of my life. Like I've been trying to tell this. I've been trying to
Point
tell my.
guard.
I've been trying to tell my kids. Like it's funny when you're. And this is something I'm thinking about right now. It's like, how much do you actually know your parents? because
Right.
because my kids have no idea what my life was other than I'm just a dad, and they've always
Yeah.
just said knowledge that like it's like now they're old enough to brag to their friends that oh my dad worked on this and my dad worked on that. Before they didn't care, but as
Right.
far
Right.
as the prior life, yes, but basketball was a huge part of my life growing up. I forgot about that, and so yeah, I was a point guard for the Bergen Bullets, which is again one of the local teams at the time, and yeah, from like 90 it's actually the reason how came to America is
Mhm.
as a basketball player. So I played basketball. I represented England. I played pro for a little bit, and then I came to the States to continue on my dream as a basketball player. So
Mhm.
I ended up in a little city called Gilroy in California,
Mhm.
which is not far from Morgan Hill in the Bay,
Mhm.
the garlic capital as they call it. And I never went to the garlic festival, which I regret that now. But
Right.
I remember that was a thing, like talking about garlic ice cream. So, um,
Ugh.
but that is when I truly learned a lot about myself and a lot about how other countries view other countries.
Mhm.
Um, so my first day in California, I
Mhm.
land. Um, I thought the coach was picking me up. He was another player. I mean, bless him. He was he was trying to do what's best for him, meaning he wanted to get the point guard on his side so I can give him the ball all the time. That was his plan, which is a great plan. I get it at that time. And he picks me up. We're driving in this like I forgot what kind of car it was, and we get pulled over by the police.
Mhm.
Like it's in my first 2 hours in California.
Dang.
He's with a guy. The guy turns around and says, "Here, hold this. It's drugs." I'm like, I don't know where you think I came from, but you need to fix this. So you better figure this out, do what you need to
Mhm.
do, but figure this out.
Right.
And and again, I'm glad for my upbringing, for my parents and the surroundings I came from, because again, people only know their own POV. And I just remember that day, I was like, this is gonna be my life. Like, it's gonna be a rough turnaround
Uh huh.
in California, and that
Yeah.
kind of set me up for how I interacted. Like,
Mhm.
of course, different culture, not trusting people, but then it also opened my eyes to what was kind of going on out here. I
Mhm.
was from a place where basketball was a team sport. You help each other, you learn the
Yeah.
fundamentals. Coming here, I realized basketball was a way out for a lot of people. Like they're
Mhm.
trying to get that payday, they're trying to get that big
Yeah.
scholarship. It was something that was not explained to me, and I had
Yeah.
to learn that the hard way,
Mhm.
even from coaches. Like there's certain people that shouldn't coach. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a big thing about it now. Like the podcast a lot of these ex players are doing is great because it's something I wish I had when I was growing up because they're telling a lot of stories behind the scenes that
Yeah.
people don't know about what it's like. I mean, it's bad enough as an American to be an athlete, but now
Mhm.
think about it, a foreigner coming into this space,
Yeah.
like, and especially I was from England. It's like, who is this English guy coming in to play our sport? So I'm dealing with that. I'm dealing with the cultural differences,
Yeah.
and there's definitely ups and downs, but it was fun. Like I enjoyed it, but it's one of them things where like now that my son's into sports,
Mhm.
it did scar me because when I had kids, I was like, I don't want any of them playing sports just because of what I have been through, what
Yeah.
I've seen. And then after a while, I got out of that. Like I got
Mhm.
one daughter, she's a track star, runs hurdles. My other daughter's a flag footballer, and my youngest son now a basketball player, which is now got me back into basketball because I got rid of it for almost like 20 years or so, and
Yeah.
now I find myself coaching. It's like a
Mhm.
new, it's like a new side mission, I guess, because like I
Yeah.
realize how much I have to offer, and then I
Yeah.
realize how much not much has changed. Meaning it's still money driven. You still got the rich
Yeah.
people
Oh, it's even
coaching.
worse now with the AU and travel ball.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation. The travel ball thing. I I was like I always tell people, I was like, if you want my son to play for you, I have to coach. that's kind of my stance. So like
Yeah.
I've been coaching my son, and then just like my goal when I'm doing basketball is to they have to they should leave here better than when they first came.
Yeah.
My goal isn't how many games do I win, which is
Yeah.
what everybody else's goal is. Everybody else's goal is we gotta win this, and they're not training the kids to be
Right.
basketball players or decent human beings even, because you
Right.
learn a lot from being an athlete. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
There's a lot of ups and downs. Like you're part of a team, be
Mhm.
leadership, knowing how to talk to people. You got 12 different personalities also that you have
Mhm.
to deal with every day, which is what the world is. You're gonna be dealing
Right.
with different personalities. So but yeah, the basketball was a big part of my life though. And even though I was playing basketball, I was still an artist before basketball.
Yeah.
So and at the time I came out to the States, no college had a art program.
Right.
So when I was playing college ball, I was teaching myself how to use Photoshop. I think it was like one and Painter at the time. Like they
Mhm.
had a illustration course, but no one knew how to teach it. So I was like, they give me the software, like go ahead, figure it out. So that's what I did. I started learning how to paint
Right.
and did like with the mouse, which is interesting because I came from a time where it still wasn't cool to be left-handed. So
Oh yeah.
when I first got a computer, the mouse by default was on the right-hand side.
Mhm.
I didn't think anything of it. So now even to this day, I still use the mouse in my right hand, but I draw on the Cintiq with my left, obviously. But it wasn't like 3 or 4 years ago. My coworker was like, "I thought you were left-handed." I was like, "I am." I was like, "You're using the mouse with your right hand." I was like, "Oh yeah,"
People
but
really don't comprehend like you're just a left-handed person in a right man world because like they
yes,
give you like left-handed scissors in like kindergarten and
yes,
they're like F you for like first grade to the rest of your life.
yeah,
Like they're in the college like what is it? The like what is that called?
the
Like
common
the
area, or
seminar room,
oh,
like the
oh yeah,
in the it's the only one left-handed desk, and I'm not about to go find a left-handed desk. It's like not that deep.
yeah,
And I like the only thing I do with my left hand is write and eat.
hmm
Other than that, I was like play sports with my right hand. Like I'm
hmm
not even left-handed shooter. Like I just do
hmm
everything with my right hand.
yeah. I was fortunate. I just took the punches and it's like I'm just normal to me. I'm left-handed, but it's funny you say that because even like when I wanted to play guitar, I was like, I want to get a left-handed guitar. They was like, why? Just flip it around. I'm like, oh, you can just make a left-handed guitar. Like what is the big deal here? And then even then, when you find a left-handed guitar for some unknown reason, it's double the price. Like, are they using more materials for this guitar? Like, so, but it's like no one really comprehends
The
the
struggle.
big, and but then they have the nerve to act like you're the problem. Like, really? Is that what we're
I'm
doing?
just existing.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like yeah. So again, yeah, I was that left-hander. Yeah. So as I was teaching, learning myself how to illustrate and stuff like that. Like I said, there was no programs for that. So I was an athlete who was an artist, which is not a norm back then.
Right.
And but that's how I got out here. And once basketball, the reason, one of the main reasons I stopped playing basketball, I never forget this. Now again, I wasn't not a dummy. I had good grades, going to school, all that stuff.
Mhm.
I was going to class and we had a game, and one of the professors was like, "Hey, like there's me and a whole bunch of my teammates." And again, most of my teammates were not good in school per se, but I happened to be good in school. But the coach was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, coach, you don't need to come to class today. You have a game." And I was like, "Why can't I come to class and then go to my game?" And like I didn't like how he phrased it and what he was saying, meaning he was trying to
Yeah.
just give you a grade. And I'm like, no, no, I want the grade I deserve. And
Right.
that was when it started to like turn. I really started to see the dark side of like sports over here, and I was just like,
Yeah.
this is not this is not for me, man. It was like it wasn't fun anymore. The constant arguing, the coach having arguments with the coach, all the weird rules. Like back then, like you weren't allowed to speak to other coaches. That was like like illegal. Like you get in trouble. But you
Yeah.
had the coaches talking to me, and then when my coach finds out, I'm getting in trouble. I'm a kid. These are adults breaking rules, but you're penalizing the children or the young
Right.
adults. And I was like, and again, that's where I thank my parents. I mean, going to Saturday school and learn that stuff helped me as a human being because I was like, yeah, this ain't right. Like we're not
Yeah.
doing this. And then that's kind of how I shifted. Like out of sports completely, but continued on with my art. I was still big into
Nice.
art, and so that's when I started going to school. I ended up going to I transferred out here to Cal State Dominguez, and I was taking a illustration class there, and the teacher was like, "Yeah, you're too advanced to be here." He's like, "You should go to Cal Arts or Long Beach." And because Long Beach State, I think it was, had a great illustration program at the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
But so the waiting list for the Long Beach thing was 3 years. I remember I'm on a student visa, so I don't have the
Right.
luxury to be seen around. So
Right.
it was
Right.
3 year waiting list to get on that one, and then Cal Arts, it was just mad expensive, and I was just like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? And then that's where a classmate told me about the Art Institute. I
Mhm.
was like, and then me and him went to the open house. I was like, okay, this can work. And I was fortunate. I had a bunch of great teachers, like ex
Mhm.
Disney teachers, like Bill Racinos was one of them. And it was just like, I was like, oh, this is that's what now I remember my dream. Because again, when I was younger, watching Saturday morning cartoons, one of the things though that stood out to me was Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
I don't know. When I watched it, I know it's roller scrolling, but at the time when I watched it, it made me feel some type of way. I was like, this is unusual but good and dark. And
Yeah.
then, of course, I watched a lot of manga, and then friggin' Akira that blew my mind.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I know I want to do something in that line. Like I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, but so then fast forward to when I'm in the States and I go to Art Institute and I start meeting all these, ex Disney animators and storyboard artists and people working at Nickelodeon. I was like, okay, like I'm in the right place.
Mhm.
So I start, taking 2D classes there. I was in love with 2D animation. That's all I remember. I was drawing, drawing, drawing. But then
Mhm.
along the way, 3D emerges,
Yeah.
explodes, right?
Mhm.
Now I'm the type of student where I'm supposed to do good in every class. So I'm taking all these other classes, 3D classes, I'm doing good in them, not realizing that I'm kind of good at all this stuff in a way
Yeah.
as a student, and not
Mhm.
reason slowly but surely I'm kind of shifting into 3D without even knowing. In my
Mhm.
head, I'm still drawing, I still want to be 2D animator, but
Yeah.
not realizing that the industry is shifting,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm taking all these classes, and then before you know it, I'm doing a 3D animation demo reel, which my first 3D animation reel was horrific. And the thing is, I knew it was. Um, Again, this is like another like shift in my life. I went to a talk which had a few Pixar guys, not Pete
Mhm.
Doctor, Brad Bird.
Mhm.
He did this talk and he was talking about animation demo reels.
Mhm.
And then when I saw the demo reels, and this was, mind you, 6 months before I graduate, I
Mhm.
go to this talk and I was like, I'm screwed. Because then I realized, yeah, there's no way I'm gonna make it anywhere. Like my animation sucks. And
Mhm.
then the way my demo reel been done was incorrect too. Because what it was at that time, a lot of schools were pushing the animated shorts. And then I remember him saying, if you're doing a short 3D animation, you're telling us this is what you can do in your own time with no one's around you. You're
Mhm.
representing, and he said most of you can't make a short. It's terrible. But it's true. It was like my shot was horrific, and I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, this ain't it. So in 6 months, I tried to redo a whole demo reel in six
Mhm.
months, which meant taking out like what we used to do. We had labs, which maybe had
Yeah.
like 30 computers. I'm taking
Mhm.
30 computers to render out my demo reel. I'm sleeping at school underneath the desk. I'm not going home. Like it was a grind. Like that was like they were pretty much preparing me for the industry.
Yeah.
And right? So that was like my introduction into like schooling and learning animation, and again I loved it. Um, it was a grind,
Mhm.
and then once I graduated, because I'm looking at all my peers, because the internet's booming now, so now
Yeah.
you're seeing animation from all over the world, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, this is who I'm going against. I'm
Yeah.
screwed. So my first 6 months, I ain't got no job, um, and at the time now, I'm married. I'm about to have my first child, so things getting real. And I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do here? So I'm doing freelance here and there, but still getting nothing. But then I end up getting a job at Image Metrics as a facial
Mhm.
animator,
Mhm.
and it was cool and all. I'm working on face, but I'm like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to be an actual character animator, like not just
Yeah.
facial. So I end up going back to school. I end up going to Animation Mentor.
Hmm.
One of the best decisions of my life. Was it 12 months intense animation,
Yeah.
and tutors like Victor Navone from Pixar. Oh gosh, who was it? I'm forgetting names. Mark Putty Blank, who was at that New Zealand studio at the time. It was just a
What
great
up?
community. Yes, Weather.
Hmm.
West City Weather. It was just a great community at the time, and I always remember all the teachers saying you can't learn animation online. That's blah 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 blah. They were shooting it down so hard
Yeah.
it was ridiculous, and then it became a point where the majority of the animators were coming from Animation Mentor, and then other
Yeah.
schools started to pop up too that were just producing a bunch of like amazing animators, and and the other thing was like not all of them knew how to draw because that was the other thing. Is like you have to know how to
Yeah.
draw to be an animator.
Right.
I know some of the best animators that can't draw a stick figure, but they know how to animate, they know how to act, they know how to make the
Right.
character feel real, which is the goal, right? Um, so yeah, that was how from basketball to animator, like
So,
a
like,
major path.
being a professional now, like, what do you think was the difference that animation mentors providing that other schools weren't?
Focusing on actual animation. Where
Hmm.
the other schools at the time, remember, 3D is booming, so all the
Hmm.
schools are thinking about we've got to get a good graduation class. We need everybody to be good at everything, but not really focus on anything, which is
Hmm.
like it was like the generalist mentality, which
Yeah.
I am against that. I mean, if you want to be a generalist, that's fine, but I don't know too many generalists that are like great at everything.
Yeah.
Like you may, especially animation, like it's a specific skill, and it's not just like making a character move. It's the psychology of the character, the
Yeah.
environment, who is that character, storytelling. It encompasses everything, and it's
Hmm.
just a lot of information
Yeah.
to learn, and that's what Animation Mentor did. They started from the basics of fundamentals, understanding weight, the good old bouncing board, just
Yeah.
understanding just the fundamentals of animation, and it was just focusing on that. They put together a good program that let you learn that, from
Yeah.
the fundamentals, the mechanics of animation, acting, advanced acting, demo reel
Yeah.
preparation, and having that every day, and then being surrounded by people all over the world who want the same goal. So
Yeah.
you're getting help from other people.
Hmm.
Some of these people are going to be your peers. You
Yeah.
know, some of the life is life. There's some people who are going to be superstars. You already can see
Yeah.
them, and then there's
Yeah.
some people who are not. Like you get to. I was able to see all that in this community, and like it was
Hmm.
one of the best decisions I ever made. I made a lot of friends, a lot of people who are now, you know, doing their own thing where it's like getting into directing whatever. Like you saw all the people, so that was what the big difference was. Like I want to be an animator, this is all you're going to learn. Whereas
Hmm.
at the other schools, like I want to be animator, like no, but you know 2D's dying, so you should learn how to model, you should learn how to do this. And,
Yeah.
and I get they're trying to again push their school, which is funny now because AI is closed down now for the most part. They went for a whole bunch of stuff, but that's what most schools are doing. So you've got to realize what you want, and I knew from day one what I wanted. Like, and
Yeah.
I know that's not normal for most people because even now I look back, like I've been animating for what, 25 years now,
Hmm.
and that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
Most people don't do what they actually want to do.
Hmm.
Like, and that's something I didn't realize. I'm like, there's people out here like are working at things they actually don't like.
Yeah.
So I have to always like be like, I'm fortunate that I'm still in this industry and I'm still doing
Yeah.
what I'm doing, and um, so that was a big change for me.
Even if you think about people getting degrees, like in anything, like 90, if you ask everyone who has a degree, like everyone who has a bachelor's, if you ask all of them, would they go back and do something different for the bachelor? Like 99% of people would choose something
And it's funny, like, and even now, this is what I wanted to do.
different. Yeah.
But there's times where I'm like, I wonder if I did it again, would I do it the same thing? And
Right.
the other thing is, the other reason why I said it is like my experiences. I remember because again, animation is great,
Hmm.
but let's talk about the real here. You're not getting paid what you're worth for the most part,
Yeah.
and that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Is like you have an actor who acts live action, they get residuals. A character animator is an actor. We
Yeah.
create things from nothing. We don't get residuals. That's a whole
Hmm.
other conversation that people are not willing to have.
Yeah. I was
Um,
reading that on your Instagram.
so, so I remember Going one of my jobs in Toronto, one of my friends, he's an engineer, living in this lavish apartment in Toronto. It's beautiful, but he paints and illustrates in his own time. So it's like he's made all the money he can make as an engineer and still
Mhm.
gets to be an artist.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a different way of looking at it. I never thought about that. Now, again, I don't know if that's something I would have done, knowing what I
Right.
know now, because I love animation, I love creating. But
Hmm.
it just opened my eyes to like, oh, there's a lot of people that even if they wanted to become artists, their parents would allow them because they had to
Yeah.
be engineers or this and that, but they get to do that on the side. So like,
Hmm.
very it's a a different path. But
Hmm.
again, to your point about people who have degrees and things and don't even use them or they don't enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, I actually wanted to be an animator. I got a bachelor's in arts and illustration, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure if it helps anything, but it doesn't mean anything. But I do actually have that. But I enjoy what I do, and that's kind of again my goal, which is weird. Like if I had not have made it in this, I don't know what I would have done because
Yeah.
that was my focus. I'm going to be an animator. I'm going to be an artist, whatever it is. And when I look back on the path to get here, I don't think I want anybody else to do it. Like to like because
It's like when people say ignorance is bliss, it applies to so much stuff. Because if you knew what your path was going to be on the front end, you wouldn't have never done it. But
no, because
because it was like piecemeal, then that's the only reason you did
yeah, it's like when I look back on like I think one day I was like looking at like all the stuff I've worked on
it.
and like I've got all my clips and put them together, right? I
Hmm.
think it came out to be like maybe 15 minutes. 20 years is 15 minutes of my life it's kind of I was like, whoa, that hit different. I was like I don't think any artist should do this because you might be a little like sad, like because when you think about it, it's like
Yeah.
you put all these years, and of course it's the journey and everything else. But when it's all said and done, all you've got to show for it, like physically, is the clips you worked on.
Yeah.
That which will be here forever, and they'll be here when you're gone. But
Hmm.
like it was just, I think it was my teacher who had brought that up, and I did it, and I was like, whoa, this is this is interesting kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah.
To go back to the college stuff, we have like some similarities because when I went to college, um, again there wasn't like art school and sports was not a thing, so I only had like three schools to choose from, which was the one I went to, Rochester Institute of Technology,
Oh,
SCAD.
Rochester.
Yeah.
I have a few friends that from Rochester. I looked into that school actually.
And then SCAD had a D2 program. And then there was this school called St. Clair College that was in Windsor, Canada. That I,
Um,
um, if I never like seriously looked into it because I like Googled this year. I'm like, oh, it's 40 minutes from my house, even though it's in Canada because I'm from
mm,
Michigan. So like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stay at home and like just cross the border because that was
mm,
like when I went to college. I actually drove through Canada to get to RIT.
mm,
And that was before they made it like so that Americans have to have a passport. I just had to have my birth certificate
gotcha.
because we're being from Michigan, like people used to go party in Canada. So,
Yeah, okay.
but
Right.
also like I went there with the plan to play on the team, but I never played because I didn't like the coach, and it's partially my fault, but like we were supposed to do the summer workout stuff. You're supposed to log all your stuff, and I just didn't.
Mm,
And so her and the team captain brought me to office and was like, "Oh, so you didn't do your stuff?" And I'm like, I didn't even make no excuses or anything.
mm,
And then we had the like group meeting, and she called me out like, "Oh, you don't have your stuff." I'm like, "You know, we had a whole like different meeting. Why are you doing this and acting like this is new information?" So that's why I was like,
that's
"Strike one."
like like I said. There needs to be some kind of screening process for coaches because 90% of them should not be around these kids. I'm being
Yeah,
honest. I'm being honest. Just like the story, like you can go to every athlete and they can tell you some kind of horrific story about their coach. Yes, there's
yeah,
some that have great, but like there's a lot of bad people out here. Like
yeah.
in the sports industry, it's just and same in the animation industry too, or any
And
industry to
so
be
I
honest.
think for me, because it was at RIT, the women's basketball team was D3, and I'm like, this is
Mm,
like traveling intramurals, like so. And then I'm getting a degree in animation, and I'm asking about like doing my homework and stuff like that. And she's acting like I'm just like an engineering major that can read a book. Like I have to use a computer. Like,
Yeah,
and so I was just like, this isn't worth it.
yeah,
I'm out.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
And then another thing that I thought of, which controversial, but when you were talking about your realization of what sports is to people here, of like it's their way out. I get I get it. I get like particularly as black people
Hmm.
like trying to take advantage of what other people have taken advantage of. So the
Yeah.
like LeBron Bronny thing. But my top thought with the Bronny thing was like like you took a spot of somebody who's like trying to like get their whole family out the hood.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And I don't even fault him for that. This is the
yeah,
system we live in. He's not the
yeah,
first person to do it. Everybody
yeah.
does it.
Hmm.
It's but again, like people, I feel like people are only righteous when it suits them.
Hmm.
Because again, everybody's quick to bring that up, but at the
Hmm.
same token, it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I don't really like. I try not to cast the judgment. I feel the same way, but at the same token, I'm like, he's using the system that everybody else is using.
Yeah, for me personally, it would be different. Like if you take the Ball brothers, because I actually watched their like Facebook show and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like he is the middle brother. Like the middle brother couldn't make it to the NBA.
Yes.
The
No.
older one and Lamelo like they made it, and so it's just like he's
What's the other one?
Lavar's the father. There's
Yeah, sorry,
Lamelo,
Lamelo.
Leangelo. So
Is it?
Jello,
Yeah,
Jello
Jello.
didn't
I,
make
I
it.
was saying Jello. I was like, is that his name? But, it's interesting. I wonder if that thing didn't happen in China, would that have changed its trajectory?
Right. Yeah.
Because that was a big thing. But
Yeah.
again, the father did what he had to do. It's like he willed everybody to believe that them three should be in the NBA, and
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. Like I can't fault him for that. But yeah, it's I don't know.
But like it's a difference between for me. For again, this is only for me. Like if you take so my point is like like Jamie Lee Curtis is a nepo baby, but she has skill.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. Yes, there's that
it's a
too.
it's a different thing for me where you're like you're a nepo baby, but you have like the skill to pay the bills.
Hmm.
So that I'm cool with like the thing with what's happening now is like with Northwest where she was at the Hollywood Bowl and she was doing she was in the Lion King costume that looked like it was
Mm.
from Party City, and you're like wasting people's money. Like I've been to the Hollywood Bowl, like those front seats are like thousands of dollars. So that's the difference for me. If you deserve to be there, all right, use your network,
Oh yeah,
use
yeah,
your
yeah.
power. But if you're not supposed to be there, like come on.
It's all across. I've seen it too many times. Whether it's basketball, whether it's in even in animation.
You don't realize how many Nepo babies were in animation, to be honest.
Yeah, and it gets even deeper than that. Like again, it's because I've always had my eyes open
Hmm.
to certain things I've seen, and I'm like, did that just happen? And I'm like, how am I supposed to feel about this? But at the same token, I'm just still trying to survive, which is another thing
Yeah,
that we need to try and change. Is like the difference between surviving and succeeding
yeah,
is a huge, mind shift and mind difference.
yeah.
That again, a lot of us are stuck underneath the survival mode, um,
Hmm.
but which get to use against us. So we need to be like aware of like when we're surviving versus okay, we need to start succeeding.
Yeah. So when we talk about your childhood, what was your art and like art journey there? Like, what was the thing that you did all the time in your childhood?
Hey, so here's a funny thing, because I actually got brought into my. They actually called my parents because they were worried. I used to get like the old. First of all, you keep telling me that Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo are the best artists and blah blah. So I'm gonna go to the library, get the books, and start drawing all their pictures, which is always naked people. So my art book, think about it. At the age of what am I, 13 maybe? My art books are just full of naked people, and that's what I'm doing. I'm drawing naked people because I'm thinking that's what the artists do. So I mean, they called my parents because they were a little worried about this. Why does it keep drawing naked people? Not again, not I'm doing it in art class, but that was like a concern. That was my thing. I was always like studying who I was told were the great artists, and that's kind of what. So I was always drawing and painting, and it was funny.
Uh-huh.
I got to a point in my education, even though I was good at school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be an artist. I'm not gonna be a
Mhm.
mathematician. I'm not gonna be.
Mhm.
I speak English. So I don't need to, you know, get a degree in English. Like that was my logical thinking. So there was times when I got to like I want to say my fourth year of school.
Mhm.
I'm just like in art class, like Miss Blount. I love her to death. She was my art teacher for
Uh-huh.
my whole career, and I was always in the class just drawing. And it was kind of like an escape sometimes from,
Mhm.
because like I was still battling from, I'm this athlete
Yeah.
that's kind of from the streets, running around, like even though I had great upbringing, I'm still running around,
Mhm.
and so I'm battling like being this artist and then being this athlete and then being where I come from, going to this school. I went to a school called Tividale Comprehensive at the time,
Mhm.
and it was a school away from all my other friends. So all my other friends went to all these other
Yeah.
schools, and my parents like, "No, you ain't going to that school. You're going to this school. You
Yeah.
know, you ain't gonna be around your friends all day," which is a great decision because it, it wouldn't have been good. And so now I'm like going to this school, which is like more a little more affluent at the time, a little more, like more richer people. And but at the
Yeah.
same token though, again, it opened my eyes to a little bit more diversity as far as like, we got Indians, got Pakistanis, I got white people. Like one of my best friends is from that school to this day. And who he's funny, like I forgot he was an artist, but he took like the accountant way, but now he's an accountant that is a tattoo artist. And he actually did one of my tattoos, Matthew Ball, shout out to
Nice.
him. But yeah, it was like, so going to that school and being an artist, it was just like, again, it was still looked at as unusual that I was doing all this stuff, because no one else was really drawing the whole naked people thing. That was just something that
Right.
I thought you're supposed to do. So I remember that at a young age in school, as far as my art was concerned. But I really excelled in art. I was always, doing, above and beyond with all my assignments and painting. And again, I owe that to definitely Miss Blount. That was my art school teacher.
Mhm.
And then from there, once I'd done with school, secondary school, which is like high school over here, I then
Mhm.
go. Now I'm looking for art college. No, there's a break between that. A lot of my elders or mentors, like especially a lot of the black men, were
Mhm.
all architects or
Okay. Mhm.
in that context. So I remember when you go to school, you do work experience. Which
Mhm.
did still did that over here, or did they ever do that over here
In
in
high
high
school,
school?
not really.
I think that's a
I mean, some
shame.
some do, but
Hmm.
it's not like standard.
I think that's a shame because yeah, we have to do work experience. You have to do two,
Mhm.
and so I want to be an artist, so I gotta look at a field that's been art. So the one job I did was making street signs because
I
that's
feel like I've intercepted with so many people who talk about street signs.
yeah, it's like because you didn't forget someone has to design those and draw them,
Right?
and I learned how to do it. And then the other one was uh, I was a draftsman. So
Uh-huh.
one of my mother's friends, close friend of the family, he was a draftsman at this firm.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I want to be an architect. And this is before computers. So you
Right.
imagine you got this huge drawing desk and you're
Mhm.
drawing lines. Now, these lines have to be exact and perfect
Mhm.
because at the company I worked at, which is right was then, that drawing goes straight to production.
Mhm.
So if you've done something wrong, they're gonna cut it wrong and you've just messed up,
Yeah.
waste a whole bunch of money. So I did that a few times. And I remember my mom's friend at the time, he was like, listen, man, like, you're young, you gotta understand, like, we're the only black people here. Like
Mhm.
those people in the factories, they don't, respect us. So we gotta make sure that we're checking our work and everything.
Mhm.
And that's what I knew I didn't want to be a draftsman. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not about to be drawing line after line. It was just, don't get me wrong, it makes great money, but
Mhm.
drawing squares and rectangles for buildings, it's not for me. So I remember going through that. Then at one point I thought, oh, graphic design. I
Mhm.
started messing around with that, and then I realized everybody, when you work for graphic design, they always choose the worst design, and I was just like, not doing that either because I'm not about to. No, I'm not drawing bad designs for you people. I ain't doing that. So I just knew that none of those was gonna work. See, I have a problem with rules, obviously. So I can admit that. don't like rules. All right, so so I just knew those were gonna work for me because there's too many rules.
Right.
So, so then definitely, and I ended up going to Stourbridge Art and Design College,
Hmm.
and was again went more into like the figure drawing, typography, which was interesting. Like having like learning how to actually do typography like by hand was
Yeah.
strenuous. But that was also an interesting life experience because Stourbridge, for those you don't know, is not very friendly to the darker complexion of folks.
Hmm.
So that was a whole adventure, like going to school there, having to catch the bus, which was in front of a notorious racist pub. So you got the bus stop and the pub. And I'm a kind of person I like to work long hours. I was doing photography, I remember too. So developing
Hmm.
film, I think that was like an amazing class. And I remember, leaving late and I go to the bus station. Now I know I shouldn't went there, but I'm just like, I'm invincible. I'm a tough
Right.
inner city, blah blah blah. And then racist guys came out the pub. They were drunk, you know, doing the usual. So, but I'm on the bus, and all I remember that's the first time I ever saw like real human strength. So you have the light posts, the
Hmm.
street the street post. Well, one of them must have been run over by a car. So you imagine a chunk of a light post is just broken on the floor. I'm
Hmm.
sitting on the bus, double decker, right at the
Hmm.
top. All of a sudden, that pole, the stone, man, this pure stone, launches to the back of the window, misses me, goes through. Bus driver screeches off and goes. Because England, like weightlifting and steroids and that stuff is very big in the UK. So these
Uh-huh.
are like strong, like racist men at that. I just
Hmm.
remember that day, and we were on the bus, and they screeched off, and there's nothing anyone could do. It was just like everybody knows that place what
Yeah.
it's for, but no one does anything about it. So
Hmm.
even that, like, so I had to always remember, like, oh, if I'm gonna catch the bus, I'd have to walk 15 minutes to another bus stop if I
Yeah.
didn't have to deal with going to the bus station. And
Right.
that was like my little childhood. One day I'm gonna make a TV show about my childhood. 'Cause there's certain things that like I've been through.
Yeah.
Like, this could be entertaining TV, uh,
Yeah.
to me. But yeah, so I went to art college, did that for 2 years, and then after that, that's when I ended up going to States as well to play basketball. It's so in
Hmm.
between there's that gap. 'Cause I was playing basketball, paying for England, going to art college, uh, traveling to England, doing the whole 9 yards. I was doing a
Yeah.
lot at a young age. So yeah.
So, so were your parents supportive of your artistic journey?
Yes, which I think is like, to me that seemed normal, but I met so many people that was not the case.
Right.
Like my parents is just like, oh, all my parents cared about was like, as long as you're not selling drugs, not doing nothing illegal, you can do whatever you want to do.
Hmm.
Like I found it real interesting when Obama was elected.
Hmm.
It was like I kept hearing, see, now you can do whatever you want. I was like, my parents told me that from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I just found it interesting that it was like people was like, see, now this proves you can. I'm like, it's like your parents should have been telling you that from day one. So it was
Yeah.
very shocking to hear that. It was almost offensive to be honest. 'Cause
Yeah.
I remember uh, having our first child at the time.
Hmm.
My wife at the time is pregnant,
Hmm.
and it's around the same time Obama's going through his thing, and I knew I think I knew what she meant, but I don't think she understood what she was saying.
Uh-huh.
She would come out and she's like, "Oh, when does it do?" And it was around November, I guess, when my first child was on the first. And she's like, "Oh, you should name it Barack Obama." First of all, I don't think that's a nice name. Me being honest, I'm gonna be honest with you. Not a name I choose, but it was just weird to me that that was the first thing that came out of her mouth. Like it was just again,
Hmm.
I understand the
Sentiment.
yeah, the sentiment, the environment that we were in, but it was
Hmm.
just it just let me know how detached everybody is from everything. Like they just
Yeah.
don't they don't get it.
Yeah.
And but it never stopped there though, because I have two daughters. It was always,
Hmm.
oh, they could be the next Serena, and I'm like, no, they can be the next Kenya and Sahara, because that's their names. Like
Right.
what
Right.
stop putting on these all the characters onto my children. And it was like a
Right.
thing, like again, because I'm so self-aware, and again the way my parents were very like
Yeah.
conscious and righteous. I would that's just like my defense mechanism. It just annoys me when people
Yeah.
label other people. No, no, they can be their own people. Let them be that.
Right.
And we do
Yeah.
that way too much over here. But
Hmm.
anyways, that was a little side quest. But I just yeah, I just always remember that. And this is where I've gotten better at asking questions and understanding, because
Yeah.
I was always, again, I'm from a different culture, so coming over here I was experiencing a lot of things that I didn't understand. I was like, why are you guys doing this? Doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. But I'm like, oh, your history is different, your
Yeah.
experiences are different.
Hmm.
Like for me, one of the biggest things for me is the N word. I don't use it.
Hmm.
I never will, because I
Hmm.
remember growing up and I thank my parents for this. And to your point about what they export, which I wanted to go back to that, because you said about what they export to other countries. There was a point in time when back at home we had a strong film and TV industry.
Oh,
From like we had our own, I guess you could, I don't know what came first, you can probably go by the dates, but we had our own like Cosby Show. We had the Desmonds. It was like a
oh,
Jamaican,
nice.
it was like a Jamaican family, that run a barbershop. Like that was our
Hmm.
comic. We had Oliver, another Jamaican comedian that had his show. There's a plethora of things. But the one thing that was interesting that I realized was like, unlike America, like you guys archive and save your stuff.
Hmm.
We didn't. Like
Hmm.
I can't remember the date, but there's the BBC had a lot burned down of like TV shows and stuff. They have no backup. Those things are gone, right? So it
Hmm.
was like it's just interesting. Like again, there used to be this strong media presence and movie TV, and then somehow the standard became we have to make it to America. So all these
Yeah.
creators start moving to America or making their shows geared to American audience. And I was
Hmm.
like, what happened to all that shows? Like I didn't know about America. We have 4 channels. We just watch what was on the 4 channels. Other than
Yeah.
like James Bond and
Yeah.
Star Wars that would come, 'cause those are the big ones. We had our
Hmm.
own shows. I always feel like this. I think this is the detriment, and people are like this to black people, no matter where you are. It's like
Hmm.
we never think about the future when we do stuff,
Hmm.
because most of our stuff comes out of pain,
Hmm.
survival,
Hmm.
sadness, right? But
Hmm.
we create beautiful art, beautiful moments, but we're never thinking about how do we capitalize on these moments financially. It's
Hmm.
just something that we're doing from our hearts, right?
There's a. I just saw somebody say uh, Garrett Morgan created the traffic light, and then white people created the traffic ticket, and then somebody created like say somebody created the filament for the light bulb, they created light
Yeah,
bills. So they
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're always trying to
But
we create something we don't
that is
capitalize
a great analogy, or that is exactly what it is. That's what happened, and I'm seeing it over and over again. And it's just one of the things. Like once we get out of that mindset of I have, you know, uh, ownership of like what we create, I think things will start changing. But we're so, again, we are caring, kind people, and sometimes I think we just stop being so kind. If I'm being honest with you, like
Point you made.
you know what I'm saying? Like no, I'm being honest with you. I'm like, why is it? Why do you go to a black creator ask for something free, but you would never go to a white creator or an Asian
Hmm.
creator and ask for free? Like, why do we
Yeah.
do that? Like,
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And I've been a victim of that, and I have to check myself. Like, well, no, because I wouldn't do it to anybody. The other people.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that? So like,
Yeah.
again, there's a lot of conversations.
Always expecting a hookup.
Yeah, and there's a lot of conversation needs to be had about that, but we can never get past the next step because we're still trying to deal with the first step, which no one
Yeah.
wants to admit to, saying what we're going through. So I'm a person, again. I've traveled. Traveling teaches you a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the same thing, yes, and everybody goes through different paths to get it.
Hmm.
But I think what hurts, what es- especially that I've been out here, is, I guess, either the stories that are being told or passed down, and we're believing in them, and that's kind of what's stopping people. Because again, there's things that I used to see, and there's
The
conversations I've
stories
had.
from the majority.
Yes, that kind of stuff. And then and I've always been a person. My parents taught me this, and again, I found them for this. Question everything, and
Hmm.
and it worked against them, my parents, because here's a perfect example. My parents used to send us to church. Now my dad, I know, is not Christian. He's Rastafarian. He didn't believe in
Hmm.
that. And I never saw my mother go to church one time, but they kept saying us to church. And one day I was like, "Mom, Dad," I'm like, "Why do you send us to church? Like I don't like going." And she was like, "Okay, you don't have to go anymore." And that was it. And I was just like, "But I understand why they were doing it, because they were trying to do it like." teach us to be good. These are the
Yeah,
things you're
yeah,
supposed to do. But there was no real reason why we were going. Because it's not like we were that bad. I mean, we were bad kids, but not that bad in that time. Well, me and my brother were, but it was just one of the things. So from that day on, I was like, I'm questioning everything because again, they're my parents,
yeah.
but they taught me like to question everything.
Mhm,
So when I came over here, one of the things I didn't understand was the use of the N word, and then when
mhm,
people got mad when other people used it, and I
mhm,
was like, so again, it's one of the things where yes, you guys say it's a term endearment, which I have arguments for that because every time I've
mhm,
used it, it's never been a term of endearment. It's usually
mhm,
some derogatory way, whether it's like you're joking around, but it's never like a positive thing. But I
mhm,
always ask, because they always say they want to take ownership of the word, right?
mhm,
The question I ask, like, why don't you try and take ownership of Apple or Nike or a business? Why is it so
mhm,
important to take ownership of the word? Because let's just say today you own the word. What
mhm,
changes? Like, tell
mhm,
me what changes when you
mhm,
own the word. Nothing.
mhm,
You still you're still at the bottom of the barrel financially. You're still at the bottom of the barrel as
mhm.
respect for the most part. So the whole energy on like owning this word never made sense to me. And I'd
Mhm,
ask my peers that, and it was like an aha moment. But
mhm,
they were fired against what they've been taught, and then me
mhm.
like opening the sheets, and it was like they almost crashed because it's like they never thought of it that way, right? And it's just something I always try, and when I meet people, I just try to have that conversation with them. Is like focus on owning something that matters,
Yeah,
something that's going to move the needle forward.
and that's what I think of on the opposite side of the spectrum when people talk about like burying the word and like with the concept of like never using it again. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, after you bury the word, they're still going to treat you like an word. You still have to fight because we're still
Yes,
going to be treated
s-
like
yes, I
burying
agree.
it is not the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. I agree. I definitely agree. It's one of the
Yeah.
things where, and that's why I started to understand. Like, oh, there's so much that's been taught here, and things that they've gone through. It's a different
What
experience.
I always say is like people, black people from the diaspora that come to America have oftentimes a superpower. Like depends on where you come from, but like particularly if you come from the continent or from the Caribbean, like you are
It's
coming
the
from a
culture.
country from where everyone from the prince to the pauper is black.
Yes.
Black American culture is our great grandfathers or
Hmm.
grandfathers told they ain't shit. That's
Yeah.
slavery.
Yeah.
Our fathers and grandfathers told they ain't shit. That's Jim Crow. And then we're told we ain't shit. That's like school to prison pipeline, stop
Hmm.
and frisk, like determining that reading levels in fourth grade, you can determine who's going to go to prison. Like you like all this stuff. So to like be aspirational as a Black American in this system is like monumental. And
Hmm.
so sometimes for like the people from the continent or the Caribbean who come here, you don't have this mental prison that a lot of Black Americans have to push through in
Yeah.
order to navigate. And so I think sometimes, depending on the person who comes here, they don't comprehend that. And then you add in what you said about always question everything. You're like, they're being told that Black people are lazy,
Hmm.
which is not true
Yeah.
because we like how do you bring people from the continent to build your country and then call it lazy? But also like we've built so many communities that they burned down. Like
Yeah.
they've burned more
Yes.
communities than we've created like
Yeah.
than are created now. So like
And it's interesting because we don't. That's not celebrated more, and of course because it's been
yeah,
burned
that
down or
should
it's
be
been part down, that should be spoke about more. And it's so funny to say that because I remember someone said to me, um, because I was having this conversation. This is in my basketball days, and I was just watching some kids play basketball, and I think I made a comment. I was like, "Why is everybody always arguing and calling the N word?" And the first thing he said to me was, "You had a father in your life, right?"
hmm
And like we don't know each other. He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, you have a different perspective." It's like most of these people here don't have both parents, so
hmm
you're coming from a different POV than most. You
hmm
and then to what you said about I was around a community, like I said, around
yeah.
Jamaicans that has some kind of belonging and culture. Even though we're in England, there's
hmm
still just like how all the other cultures have theirs. In other countries, we have
hmm
ours. America seems to be the one where that's been pushed back or broken or constantly
Yeah.
being trodden on. So I started to understand that aspect. I was like, ah, okay. Now I'm starting to see with a different lens. So then I approach it a little bit differently, not so like defensive or like, oh no, no, no. I started to have more of a conversation and question, and then I
Hmm.
try and get in their shoes, and I try and put them in my shoes, and then
Yeah.
see if we can come to an understanding, or you know yeah, just a better understanding of like what's actually going on outside.
I feel like the crazy thing about Black American culture is that we have like a vast culture, but it's like it's not on the forefront.
Mm-mm.
I'm like we need to have like rituals or something like because if you go on social media and you watch a video where it's somebody doing something that Black Americans do, I thought I was the people in the comments. I thought I was the only one that did that. Why would you be the only one that did that? Like it's part of our culture, but it's like it's all because we're in like America and it's such an individualistic society. Everybody thinks they're just like individually doing stuff.
I could tell you something that happened that was eye opening
Uh-huh.
to that point. So pandemic, remember when the pandemic hit, and then
Hmm.
it was like George Floyd, Kobe, pandemic, just a
Hmm.
lot bunch of things happened, right?
Hmm.
I remember, and we're all at work because we're all virtual.
Yeah.
At the time, I was on Insomniac Games, and there was like, let's just say about 10 black people were there. Two of us were animators, me and
Hmm.
James, and then we had, human design,
Hmm.
whatever. And this whole thing comes up, and then the job is like everybody's got all these different woke trainings now. It was this training for this, training for that, training for that, and I was like, what are we doing here? And like me, I'm so pessimistic and cynical. I'm like, what are we doing? But I remember then they created a group chat, the safe space for the black artists in the company.
Hmm.
But there was something interesting that happened. We realized that at the time I've been there 6, 7 years, and some others have been there 3 or 4, that
Hmm.
we've never really sat down and like had a conversation.
Hmm.
And what came out of that was it's that whole thing of we can't be seen in groups, because if we're seen in groups, they're gonna think we're doing something.
Right.
So unconsciously, this is something that we were doing, and we didn't
And do you
know.
know the history of that?
Yeah, so it's
Huh?
always funny. So and then we started to talk about that. But the thing
Yeah.
was, thing like we ended up addressing our whole studio, explaining to them
Right.
where this comes from, what we're
Right.
going through, and why we do the things that we do. And this was interesting because I remember when the whole George Floyd came up, I kept hearing people on like the black side saying it's not our responsibility to teach everybody else.
Hmm.
I was on the opposite spectrum because I said if we don't, they're gonna do their version and then it's gonna be
Hmm.
incorrect,
Hmm.
right? At the end of the day. So that was what we did with our job. When we told them the reason why when we go in an elevator and you know there's a white woman, I'm coming off the elevator. I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
up there by myself. There's a
Hmm.
reason why there's certain colors we can't wear in certain areas. There's a
Yeah.
reason why we don't hang around together because we don't want you thinking we're plotting to do something or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. There's a reason, like we were telling them this is how everyday life, but it's not something. It's just normal to us.
Hmm.
When we address them, a lot of them had no idea.
Yeah.
But at the same token, you're expecting them to learn all this stuff without us actually telling them these
Yeah.
issues. So I get what they people were saying was like it's not our responsibility. I'm the other. I think it is our responsibility because if we
Hmm.
don't, things things happen where someone gets credited for creating something else because we're not
Yeah.
being responsible, saying that this is what we did, this is how we do it, we created this. Because to your point, you're saying a lot of the stuff that black people do in America is not on the forefront. It's only on the forefront when someone not black does it,
Yeah.
and that's the issue to me. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing here? Like, and then everybody starts complaining and crying. I'm like, again, but it goes back to how we usually create stuff from pain and sadness, and we're not
Mhm.
thinking about monetizing or financially,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
at the same token, when it does happen, and someone who's not like us gets all the credit, then everybody comes out the woodwork. So like, we got to make a decision. We got to start being, and it comes with education and knowledge, but we got to start talking more, having these
Hmm.
conversations with each other. And to your point, everything is in being individual. We don't. We all say we want to work as a team, but the way everything's set up to be successful, for some reason we're told we gotta step on other people and like
Yeah.
work hard and put your head down and don't work as a team kind of thing. But at the same token, it's like work as a team, and it's like it's just so many
Yeah.
conflicted messages, and you have to kind of sift through them. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's but I remember that brought up that memory because we were all talking. I'm like, yeah, this is why we don't hang around. This is why we don't do
Yeah.
reviews because we just want to like we don't want to be that black guy that is
Yeah.
being shown on media. Like we want to
Mhm.
prove to them, no, we're not that black guy with this black guy. But like, why are we even doing that? Because no one else
And
has to do that.
and to anybody watching, what we're talking about is like the black code slash slave codes, which there are
Hmm.
multiple, but one of them is that black people couldn't congregate in three or more people
No.
because what and so I endured that when I worked in Louisiana as well because every like when I worked at one place, every single time there was three black people congregated and it was not the same white coworker. They made a comment about it. And then I noticed because my dad
Mhm.
always taught me be observant.
Yeah.
What when we there were two black people and one white person. The one of the people that always made a comment, she finally didn't make a comment because there was a white person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just again, a lot of this stuff is taught, and you have to start on teaching a lot of this stuff.
But it
Um,
some of it is taught not explicitly. Like they're
exactly.
just
Yes.
standing next to their
Yeah.
grandma, and the grandma's like, "What are those people doing?" And then you're
Yeah.
learning it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And like even another one that I found weird, and I brought this up with my friend was there's a point when I got older, like for some unknown reason, it was natural for us. I mean, we know why to always sit at the back of the bus, right?
mhm,
I was like, think about it. I was like, what? And then one day I was like, wait a second. Went through all this stuff, and still we run to the back of the bus. So
mhm,
I started making a conscious thing like I'm not sitting in the back of the bus anymore. I
mhm,
sit at the front of the bus.
mhm,
And I told my kids that no, no, don't sit in the back of the bus. You sit at the front. Like, and that was someone. And then I, I explained it to one of my good friends, and he was like, I never thought about that. I was like, yeah, we don't. It's
mhm.
just like there's something that we keep doing and don't realize the certain behaviors that we continue on. Now, some might say, "Oh, you're thinking too deeply about it," but again, it's that's the
I mean,
world I grew up
who
in.
cares?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
why
like
can't we think deeply?
yeah, right. But that was one thing I was like, yeah, don't no, we're not going to the back. We sit at the front, and like, that's
Another
something
thing I
like
was gonna say was like for the teaching part, it's like dependent on temperament because I am not a 101 teacher. I am a
yeah,
401 teacher. Like
yeah,
you can come to me and when you have learned some stuff from the other people, the other black people, but I'm not a 101 because I'm like because people have different attachments to it depending on
yep,
how you were raised and stuff like that. I feel like that's why like Trevor Noah is like excellent at articulating like Black American stuff. Obviously, he went through apartheid, but
hmm
there's like a separation. There's not that emotional connection to it
yes,
that is like you can look at it from a different lens, and that will be different than like how a DL Hughley would talk
hmm
about Black
that's
stuff.
but that's the gift and the curse though,
Yeah,
because we are detached from it. Sometimes we come off as being arrogant, elitist, or judgmental,
yeah.
and there's that balance, right? And that's something I've had to learn.
But you
It's
can
like
tell when somebody has the history. There's a
yes,
different air to the
mm,
person if they're communicating and they know the history versus they don't. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, like it's been an interesting journey for me. Like again, especially coming to a different country and like the seeing things and like again I look back into like all those days of going to Saturday school and it's like it's helped me open my
yeah,
eyes to certain things and I'm like, oh, this is why we do this and this is why this
yeah,
happens over here and like, oh, I want to question why that's happening. Like, why is that? I'm always the like I'm very big on like the whys because I like
yeah,
to
yeah,
know why things are happening, why it works, and not to say it's right or wrong. I'm just genuinely interested.
yeah.
Well, why did you do that, or why would you, or why do you think
Mhm.
that? Where did you learn that from?
Yeah,
And because it informs me of where I need to go, and
yeah,
again, and hopefully it may inform you about something about me. But I just,
yeah.
overall, we just have to have more dialogue and just talk more about stuff. I don't think we do that a lot.
I have a question. So, as an inquisitive person, have you noticed how pissed people are at questions sometimes?
That's another thing. And the reason about that is because they think, because straight away they think you are questioning them as a human being.
Right.
And to your point, it's hard to detach your emotions when someone may be asking a general question, but straight away you're like, well, why would you ask me that? What are you trying to say? And it's like, no, no, I'm actually genuinely asking. But I think the art of like being curious and
Right.
squashed, whether it's from social media, whether it's from whatever, maybe just asking questions is something that's not
Hmm.
allowed anymore for some unknown reason. And I think it's hurting problem solving because I
Yeah.
see it in kids the same way when I'm coaching kids like I see them do things and I'm like, I'm not gonna, like, I challenge them, like, I want you to think about why you did that move specifically. Like, why
Yeah.
did you do that move? And they sit there and they can't answer. I'm like, you can't just make moves for the sake of making moves.
Right.
Like, you're making a move with an intention. You're making a move to get open. You're making a move to
Right.
score. You're making a move. There's the
Because
like,
everybody trying
and
to be and one.
yeah, and it's like I'm sitting there. I'm like, what is happening? That, like, I'm missing something. Like, I know I'm not that smart. Like, there's no way you're telling me that. Absolutely not. Like, but it's just like the art of problem solving and kind of disappearing
Mhm.
because of the access to so
Yeah.
much information. There's so much access that it's like an overload that
But
they don't even know how to use it.
right. And that's adults' fault as well.
Yeah,
But like,
no, and that goes back
because
to
they think because their 3-year-old knows how to find the YouTube Kids app that they know how to use technology, and it's like they just know how to get to the
no,
app. They
yeah, they
don't
don't
know.
know what the
Yeah.
doing, and but that goes back to what I was saying about coaches, that everybody shouldn't be a coach because teaching is a skill,
Yes, it is.
and not every great animator, great NBA player, great engineer, great whatever can actually teach. It's a
Right.
different skill, like, and being honest to yourself about that is something that is not apparent to a lot of people. Like, you
Yeah.
are not a good teacher. Don't get me, like, you're just not. And your teaching style is not. So no matter
It's
how,
not even a style. It's just
yeah, yeah, like, you, because you reach the highest of whatever doesn't mean you can teach. Because again,
yeah.
the one thing I noticed, like, a lot of people forget what they went through to get to here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, remember, you went through a lot. Like, talk about that. Like, so I try and get to talk about that
It's really
versus.
hard to think about to transfer your brain when you have a lot of knowledge to transfer your brain to a beginner. It's like if
it's
that's
it's hard. It is hard. But that's when you have to start really looking at yourself, though. Like, okay,
yeah.
what did you do? Who did you learn from? What did
Hmm.
you see? What resonated with you? Even the bad and the good. Like, I've learned a lot of stuff from bad experiences.
Yeah.
Like, you can learn from every single experience.
An
But
important thing I learned as a teacher: everybody doesn't learn how I learned.
no,
Like,
they don't.
so you
Like,
have to do that too. You have to think about how other people's brains work and teach them their way too.
I I remember, like, because there's a lot of animators I remember that are like self-taught. And I say that I shouldn't do that, but, like, they have this different POV because they were self-taught and had to go through the grind by themselves. They look at other people as somewhat inferior or lazy because they don't know how to learn like they learn. I'm like, you can't think that way. You have the
Right.
IQ or whatever it is to
Mhm.
understand how things work. You self-taught. Don't. A lot of it comes from, like, a bit of disdain because they feel like, oh, well, I did it. Why can't you?
Yeah.
Because they can't. Like, now it's up to you to help them if you really want to help to get
Mhm.
there.
Or
And
stop complaining about it, or stop
yeah,
talking about it. Like,
that was that too, man. It's a lot. And again, and that's kind of how I am as an anime, well, person in general. But I know in my animation career, that's what I started to do.
yeah.
There's certain things I started to see and experience. I was like, man, when I first started this animation journey, when I first drew that cow in that book, the first thing I said is that I want to make my own movie or TV show. Like, that
Mhm.
was I remember saying that, but then I was like, but I'm not ready yet. And as the career went on, I'm not ready. I don't know how to do this, don't know how to do that. And then it wasn't until working on Spider-Man and I saw how much money that made and the experience I went through when I was Spider-Man. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm kind of done with this. It's time for me to start making my own stuff
Right.
because
Right.
I'm just seeing the writing on the wall, and if you don't start, it's never gonna get anywhere. And then
Yeah.
that's kind of what
Mhm.
took me to, again, as of right now. I'm like, I mean, I still work in games right now. So I'm at Amazon Games, the animator there, but
Nice.
I've been working on my own TV shows. I've written two-part scripts, getting ready to pitch all that fun stuff. But it came from remembering when I was a child what I wanted to do,
Mhm.
and that was create my own TV show or movie. Like, I always had this dream that me creating my own thing, and then that's when I started to be like, okay, if you want something done, you kind of have to do it. You can't sit here and listen to people complain and all this and that. I'm
Yeah.
like, if you want something done, do it yourself. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. That's the worst, and that's not that bad, right?
Yeah.
When you think of it like this, the how life is, it really isn't that bad. So
Yeah.
like, you just do it. You know what I'm saying?
And for anybody watching, for the question thing, like there's a great book that I read called The Humble Inquiry, and it talks about in American culture and probably more like Western culture, probably, but like in American culture, it's all about telling people stuff and not asking. Like there was this example of like there was a conference room and this guy who wrote the book is like a consultant
Mm.
and the person is like, yeah, when we have meetings, nobody like moves to the front. They all like congregate in the back. He's like, have you ever asked them to move to the front? No.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you say that because I do this more with kids when I'm coaching,
Yeah.
especially kids who are uncomfortable or I know that they have only just started playing. They'll
Hmm.
go to the back. And I'm like, no, no, no. You need this information more than most. I want you in the front. I want you
Yeah.
next to me. Now, don't get me wrong. The people that are skilled, I give them their challenges. But I need you guys who are always shying to the back. No, 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 no. You come to the
Yeah.
front. Or I rotate lines. You rotate
Yeah.
lines so everybody feels included. Because I've back in the day that wasn't the thing. You go to
Yeah.
the back
Yeah.
and you would stay in the back and you would disappear. And
Yes.
you don't. And again, because you mentioned something else about like not everybody's comfortable speaking up,
Hmm.
stepping up,
Hmm.
making the move. Sometimes you need to give someone that little
Which
boost.
is huge in
Or
the animation industry.
yes, which is it's so funny, like because they always say how animators are how we're awkward and weird, and we are. There's a range of us, right?
Uh-huh.
Definitely a range. But like for instance, I don't fall into that category because I've had other experiences, which is this is
Yeah.
very important to anybody who wants to be an artist. Your life experiences are very important. Like those are like again, I always forget about the things I've done in my life. I've accomplished a lot
Hmm.
that I forget, and something that my writing teacher mentor told me, which I think was amazing. She had us do this but she had us do this thing where you get a piece of paper, you
Hmm.
draw a line,
Activity.
yeah, like activity, I guess, or you draw a line on a piece of paper, right, and then you label it 0 to 5, 5 to 10, all the way up to your current age.
Okay.
Then on the top, you're gonna put everything positive that you can remember that you've done. Anything.
Hmm.
At the bottom, all the negatives and sad things.
Hmm.
And you just do it right, all the way up to your current age. And you'll find you'll start to like remember things that you may have forgot about, accomplishments, bad
Yeah.
days, good days, people you met, just anything. And because this was kind of something you do to help when you start, writing your show, get into writing,
Hmm.
to exercise. But should have you do it. Should do it like at least every like 6 months or so, something like that. I can't remember the exact number, but you do it every so often, and because every time you do it, you remember something different in your past
Yeah.
and stuff, and that let me reminded me of so much things I've done. Like even when you
Yeah.
brought up the whole me being a point guard, that was a huge part of my life. Like
Hmm.
basketball was a huge part of my like being
Hmm.
and existence, and then before that, playing the drums and being a musician. Because even now, I started DJing as a hobby.
Hmm.
And people's like, man, you got good so fast. But I remember, I come from musicians. My dad was a
Yeah.
musician. My uncle's a musician. I listened to music.
Right.
I used to dance about it with my brothers. Like there's certain things that like you kind of forget that you've done. Uh, but I fear that a lot of people are like not experiencing life like they
Yeah.
should because we're all stuck behind, the computers and the phones. Like go
Yeah.
outside and just do stuff and meet people, man. Like it really does help enrich your artistry, your
Hmm.
creativity, like just going through this stuff. And I think that is what, again, helped me getting through, the animation industry because it ain't easy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
again, I sit back and I'm like, I've actually made it. And again, I'm not saying it trying to be I'm the best animator. None of
Hmm.
that. Like I know where I am in the pecking order. Like what I'm saying. So I'm very self-aware about that. But it's
Yeah.
just like this is a very tough industry, just like most industries. And but you have to remember who you are, where you came
Yeah.
from, who your
Mhm.
family is, what thing like being true to yourself and try and use that to pour into your artwork or pour into
Yeah.
your creativity
Hmm.
and again when going back to teaching, like I said, not everybody is comfortable just like speaking up. So even being aware of your team or the people you're working with, what makes them tick, what makes them uncomfortable, like it's very hard when you're trying to be like individual and make it. And even now, I'm saying this, people are probably rolling their eyes like, yeah, he can say that because he's working. I was
Yeah.
exactly the same way. When I used to go to these talks, animation talks, and superstar animator be at the top saying, um, work on things that you what that you like. Don't just
Mhm.
work for anything. I'm like, yeah, I need a job, so that's not gonna work, right?
Right.
So but I understand now what he was saying. But it's like again, it's hard to tell someone young just getting in to be like, don't just choose any project. No, I'm gonna be realistic. Choose any project because you got bills to pay.
Right.
Just don't lose your way though.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
remember what your goal is, and
Yeah.
remember these are the stepping stones to get to where you
Hmm.
need to get to, right?
Nice.
And like try and really like stay focused on like what your goal is, which is I think another thing I know is like a lot of people don't write down their goals or
Hmm.
know what it is, and and it's fine if you don't know. You might not know what it is now, so then write down what you like, then what you
Yeah.
don't like, what are your interests. Start thinking about that because it really, when you're on that on that hamster wheel, it's going fast and it's non-stop.
The crazy thing is, like, a month ago, I created new affirmations, and affirmations can be considered goals in some
Yeah, yeah,
instances.
yeah.
Like, five of them have already come true. And so I'm reading a book, A Happy Pocket Full of Money, and then there's like a subtitle.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, write down like all your, like, 1,000, like, even if it's I want to sweep every day. Like, he's like, write down all your goals so that you could kind of put it into the atmosphere, and then you can look back at your list and see how many of them that you've, accomplished. And he's like, even the minute goals, like, write down 1,000, 2,000 goals for like the rest of your for the next 10 years or for the rest of your life. Like, write down all of them.
And even to add to that, because even before like all this affirmation stuff, like I used to let's visualize. Okay, when I was growing up, it was like, okay, I want to be an artist. I want to do this. So I was just drawing every day, looking at artists, looking at animation. I was just looking at stuff. Then it was like when I started playing basketball. Okay, I want to be the best basketball player. I want to make it pro. How do I make it pro though?
Yeah.
What are you actually going to do to get there? So it's okay to write your goals down. Now you gotta write. Now what are you gonna do to get there? Because I
Hmm.
think some people are good at writing their goals and like following through with it and doing what they need to do. But some people just write them down and then wait, thinking, okay, one day it's gonna happen. Nah,
Yeah.
you have to do stuff
Yeah.
like to get there. What is your plan to get there? Who are you
Yeah.
talking to? Who are you watching? Like who you surround yourself with. Are you going
Mhm.
like for me as an animator? I was going to every animation talk ever possible I could. I'm in Los Angeles. There's no excuse for me not to go to like they're bringing everybody here at the
Right.
time. I was going up, okay, I'm going to them. Like okay, I'm gonna go to this talk with Brad Pitt. I'm gonna go to this Pixar, this DreamWorks, this thing. I was like kind of doing all that stuff,
Hmm.
soaking up knowledge. Going to CTN at the time.
Hmm.
What's the other one in Pasadena? There's a new art
Lightbox.
one. Yeah, Lightbox. I was like, and the people I were meeting, I was just like, oh, like I remember I was standing in line and I met uh um one of my friends now, Bula Rebella, long time DJ animator, works at Insomniac now, waiting for a
Hmm.
while. But I was just in line talking to him randomly
Hmm.
and we became friends, you know what I'm saying? It's just like
Yeah.
you gotta start going outside, man, and really like meeting
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
and putting yourself. Because the one thing about artists and creators, for some odd reason, and like it's an interesting thing. Is like we do all this creating, but never want to show it. It's like like I never used to go around telling people as an animator. Like I never spoke about it. Someone, it's just a thing I didn't do. I never spoke. I would go in a room, people talking about what they do. Wouldn't even bring it up. I'd be like, yeah,
Hmm.
I sit there quietly, not really like. For some reason, I just didn't want to know people that tell people that I worked as an animator. I just don't know why. It just wasn't a thing. Because what I didn't like, one part of me is like, I don't like bragging about what I do because I just do it for myself. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But again, it was a thing I remember I just didn't do. And then it wasn't until uh, going through life was lifing. Um, someone said to me, he's like, sometimes you have to congratulate yourself
Yeah.
on your success. I was like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? I was like, you've worked hard to get where you to get to. It's okay to be like to clap for yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. It's okay to say, hey, this is what I do proudly. And I
Because that
think this,
gets you like somewhat endorphins. Like, we
yeah,
kind of are just like, oh, I'm glad that's over, but like,
yes,
celebrate it.
yes. So now like now I speak about it a little bit more. I say it's like, and then, but at the same token, I still get, I
And
still,
that actually helps younger people because of the culture, particularly in the diaspora, of like not thinking that we're going to be successful if we go into art. If
Mhm.
you start talking about it more and you see more successful people, then there's like, oh, they exist.
That's one of the eye-opening things that some of these big-time companies annoy me and don't realize. So I'm not gonna mention the companies, but this some of that happened. There was a thing where they were talking about we need to get more black people, people of color in the studio, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, my friend was like, well, how are we gonna do this? And this to me was like one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life, if I'm being honest. They said, well, instead of hiring the usual white animator or whatever, let's pass on that person and then just hire the the non-white guy. And I'm like, well, why would you do that? Like that, I don't see how that's helping the situation here. Here's an idea.
People get mad at like DEI, but it's like white people improperly implementing DEI. Like it's not our
That's
fault that they suck at it.
so, but here's the thing. That was like, here's something. I was like, how many schools do you go into? Like, how many schools do these studios go into? Yeah, you don't go into them. Like, I go to speak at schools. They, to your point, they don't even know there's an option to work as a, they play video games and watch shows and more, but specifically more video games. They don't know that you can actually do this as a living. Like, there's an engineer, there's a designer, there's an animator, concept artist, storyboard artist, voiceover actor. They don't know any of these exist, and it's because I think the game industry did a terrible job of going into schools and telling them this, especially on the previous schools. Like, they don't know this is the option. So I've been to schools and like, what, you can do that? Like, yeah, there's all these resources. I was like,
Mhm.
you guys spend so much time trying to be secretive about your games and what you're doing. Like, how do you expect everybody to know how they're made? You don't talk about it. Now, movies
Right.
is different. You got the behind the scenes. Everybody knows for the most part.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they don't, but there's a more information out there. When it
Yeah.
comes to animation and art, they still don't know how much goes behind the scenes for a lot of these
Yeah.
movies. But like, you're talking about trying to get more diverse in in your workforce, but you don't actually go outside to those communities and talk about what you do.
Mhm.
Like, you don't have anybody going to school. There's not a program in place. So start there. Again, there's another situation where it was just like, this is also very weird.
Mhm.
There was and again, I have my own thoughts on Black History Month, but
Mhm.
there was this thing I did on Black History Month, and there was like, oh, it was something in the words of come up with ideas of who's important in Black history. This is a World Company email, and there's not most people in the company are not black. So it was a weird email, and a lot of people felt uncomfortable. I was like, rightfully so, because I was like, why are you doing this? Like first of all, let's first ask some of the black people that work in the company. They didn't even ask them. Like, so I said, so there's your problem right there. And instead of me getting mad, I said, I think the way you worded this and did this was incorrect. Like, you should
Right.
probably start by asking some of the black people that work in your company first about Black History Month, or what they think of it, or what are some good ideas. There's number one. Then from there, like, don't do it like it was. It felt like it was like a last minute scramble, because it was like the week before Black History Month was gonna start, and all of a
Right.
sudden, and you know, and
And
I,
my thing radically is make the black people consultants, but y'all still do the work. Because then they'll make it our job to be like the black, and I'm like, I don't get paid for this.
exactly. But it was just, again, but then again, a lot of it is because the conversations are not happening.
Yeah.
And again, they happen for a quick second when, the George Floyd, Kobe, COVID, everybody was like, "Oh yay, diversity, be inclusive." It lasted 2 seconds, and I was like, again, I'm very pessimistic against it. I was like, yeah, it's gonna last 2 seconds, then we're gonna go back to normal. Like, I haven't seen anything that's really changed since that.
Yeah.
Like, everything's kind of fell back into its normal default state in a way. Uh, I won't say all of it, but like, it didn't make the biggest splash than they thought it would.
Yeah.
But again, it all goes down to having a conversation,
Hmm.
acknowledging the people that are in your workforce first, and then going from there. And that, again, it was just, I hear a lot of unusual things, and I remember not everybody's smart.
Hmm.
Like, when it comes to certain things, they're smart in one thing, but
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
dumb in others. So
Yeah.
like. You really got to start. And but again, it also takes people to actually step up and say, "Hey,"
Hmm.
and but that's also hard because your point. I don't get paid for that. I'm
Yeah.
here to do this.
And that's additional part of my platform. Like when the George Floyd stuff happened, and like Bree was like, hire more black animators, and that started like a floodgates of stuff on Twitter.
Mm,
I was like, I created a graphic of like, this is how you do, this is how you find, this is how you hire more black animators. And at the top it was like, don't use a quota system. I'm like, go to, like, when you go to these colleges, go to HBCUs,
mm,
go to the black, like the black student unions at the PWIs and ask, like, go to the schools with animation programs, see if there's like a black student union, and then present the opportunity. I feel like a lot of people think, like a lot of the majority think it's just like handing out stuff. It's like these people don't even know the opportunity exists. That's why there's less people. If you present it and put it in their face,
mm-hmm.
there's a lot of them are going to rise to the occasion because sometimes with how the majority thinks, it's like you automatically think that everybody who is a disenfranchised community is unqualified, and that's racist.
Yeah, and but
And-
and there's also, I think that a lot has changed because it's funny. You have all this social media, internet, but I know I remember when I was coming up, there was SIGGRAPH. There were all these like
yeah.
art things that you could just go to, and it was like it was something to look forward to. It's like, hey, we're going here because we might bump into this job fairs. Like those, I just remember every year I went to SIGGRAPH for years, and all these other
When it
like
came to New
art
Orleans,
events.
when I was living in New Orleans, I went to the free park. So I was like, I can't afford a
Yeah,
ticket, but I'm gonna
yeah,
go to the free park.
and that was the other thing too. Like I remember, I don't know what I did, but I never paid for any of them. And I can't remember. There was always
Did you
somebody.
volunteer or no?
No, I never volunteered. There was always something, some link or someone figured it out and they send us a link and we go for free. I don't know if it has something to do with being a student or I think I was fortunate that I did have a lot of teachers that were actually working in the industry too. So I think that might have helped. But I always know I did not pay for much because I couldn't afford half these things, which is another thing too. Art is the most overpriced career I think I know. Like think about the cost of a paintbrush, an art book. Now it's computers and how you have to have the power of the biggest computer and all this microphone and all this other stuff. I'm looking at like even now like one of my computers broke down and I was looking up to buy a new one. I was like, yeah, I'm not buying a new one. Like I'm good. And I'm not poor. I make good money, but I'm like that just doesn't seem like the right price for me for what I do these days. Like so now I've got my little laptop. Now granted, I've got my two Cintiqs. Those are freaking expensive as heck, right? But
Yeah.
it's like again, it's like one of the most expensive careers
Hmm.
to do, and but but then we don't get paid as much as we should. Again, a whole nother conversation about
Yeah.
residuals and yeah, it's a whole nother conversation. And then now we've got to deal with the whole AI thing, which is an
Hmm.
interesting
Yeah.
situation that we're in. But
I
but
did want to mention something really quickly of like
mm,
when you were talking about the goals.
mhm,
I'm neurotypical, but I do consume a lot of neurodivergent content. And one
mhm.
thing that I saw was like sometimes when you start with a goal, you don't break it down enough. So like
Yes,
sometimes your goal is like I want to clean my house. Like no, break it down even more. I want to clean my kitchen. No, break it down even more. I want to clean the
hmm
sink. Like okay, like that's where you need to start.
and yeah, that's a great point. And that's why I say right how you're gonna get there because the goal is the end thing, but there's probably stepping stones or for the game is side quests you're gonna have to do to
Yeah,
get there. There's stepping stones to get to that goal. So yeah, to your point, yeah, you gotta break it down.
yeah,
Like I said, and then yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's great to have your goal, but realistically, at the age and where you're at right now, what is the next stepping stone?
yeah,
Because you ain't not everybody wakes up and becomes a superstar. Like that doesn't happen to everybody. Like
yeah,
I'm sorry, it's probably not gonna be you. If I'm being honest
yeah.
with you, like
And even if
most
you think somebody is an overnight success,
it
like
was yeah, it wasn't.
they've been in it for 50 years.
Yes, they've been grinding. They've been grinding. So yeah, you gotta don't get caught up in the social media success. Like they've been
Yeah.
working, or some of them are lying. To be honest, so it is what it is.
So let me list some projects that you worked on, because it's for people to know, like somebody that looks like them worked on some of their favorite stuff. Let me know if anything's wrong, because sometimes
Mm,
IMDb is wrong. So,
don't worry.
all right.
I might be
So,
surprised. Let's see.
so you worked on uh what is this? SOCOM, U.S. Navy SEALs Combined Assault.
Oh, so that's them shoot 'em games.
Yeah.
Again, so this is a weird thing. Probably should say this, but I've worked on quite a few games. Never played them. I don't. I don't. I love creating. Now, don't get me
Uh-huh.
wrong. I grew up playing, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. Those are my
Mm-hmm.
games. Metal Gear Solid, Onimusha. I'm
Mm-hmm.
even, as of recent, seeing that Monkey King game. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. But
Yeah.
most of the games I work on, I
Mm-hmm.
don't play. Like,
Yeah.
I'll make them and then pass it on.
So later, My Sims, Unreal Tournament, Grand Theft Auto 4.
Hmm.
I had to read the Roman numerals. I'm like, what? Wait, 4. The curious. Oh, do kids know how to read Roman numerals? Anyway, the Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
Um, and then Splice, Red Tails, Hop,
Hmm.
Lost Planet, The Nut Job, Iron Man, and Captain America: Heroes United, Sunset Overdrive, Hotel Transylvania, Rock Dog, Spider Man, New World. Is there anything else that's notable, or anything you want to make a comment on?
Uh, I went on Ratchet and Clank, but it's funny seeing all those things. Each project has a different memory and experience. It's so funny. When you said Red Tails, like, ooh, Red Tails. I remember that. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every project you're gonna have a different story. I remember on Red Tails, right? The lead guy on that, I forget his name, and sorry, shots may be fired, but it is what it is. He was he was very big on being a pilot, so he has his own like pilot simulation in his house.
Okay.
So he's everything he knows, every mathematical thing, how it moves and it tilts. I'm an animator. My goal is to make it look realistic.
Yes.
So I remember I had this shot. Okay, shot to me was not serious. Whatever. No, don't say that. Every shot is serious.
Uh huh.
As a teacher, but as a human being, it's not that serious. Uh, as a so the shot was a plane. The guy's in the cockpit and he's firing. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, who knows how fast the plane is going? Right,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not moving the plane in space because that's ridiculous. We don't have the setup. We don't have the environment for that. We just do
Right.
old school like animators do. Puts him in the background. It's flashing by, and we move it. Boom. This guy was like, the plane's not moving the right speed. He's doing this formula. I'm like, hey man, the plane isn't moving in real space. It's a locked camera, and it's firing. You might be the only person on Earth, the small percentage of you, that know this. People going to the movie theaters are not gonna sit there and be like, that plane is not going blah 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 kilometers per hour. I like from the tight shot of a guy, the plane doing this shooting. He's trying to tell me, oh, you're not using the right speed, and I was like, come on, man, like we're not doing this today. I'm not gonna sit on the shot all day. Now again, don't be like me, because I'm a very in like I've noticed I'm a little not weird, but I take unusual routes to doing things. Meaning, so as an animator, your job is to create the director's vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that is your job description, and
Mm-hmm.
which is a great description.
Christian.
Me, because of like I mentioned earlier, I'm not good at rules. So my goal was, as an animator and all my training, I'm gonna give the director their idea, and I'm also gonna give them the idea that I think is better. Again, I wouldn't suggest you doing this, but that
Or
was my
just don't say it's better. This is another option.
yes. So what I used to do though, I started doing this even at animation mentor at school. They give you an assignment, and the
Mm-hmm.
assignment was, have a character jump.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do the assignment, but I'm gonna do three other ideas of how the character would do the same thing.
Right.
And because I just always thought, like, I always wanted to what's the word, not investigate, but explore other
Mm-hmm.
options as far as like, how can this character do this, with, creativity, how creative can I be with this simple
Mm-hmm.
assignment. So it started from them, so I was always doing three assignments, so I was giving
Yeah.
myself more work, like
Yeah.
when it was an acting scene, whatever, like just in the
Mm-hmm.
blocking stages. So that's kind of how I started to approach my job, is like I would like, because as animators we're taught how to tell stories, the arc of the character. These are things we have to do because we always like animating, and the
Hmm.
whole point is to like to put across this performance, right?
Yeah.
So then when I would, and you'll find this out when you start working in animation, you'll find out that some of your biggest directors are not that great because it's a team thing. You've got other people.
I think it's like people don't know what they want until they see it. Even if they tell you exactly what they want, they don't know what they want until they see it.
And nothing against that. Sometimes that's just the way it is. Some people,
Yeah.
some directors have the great vision. Some people are the ones that like this. They'll see it, they know what it is when they see it.
Hmm.
But it's also very hard on the animator to work that way when you
Yeah.
don't know what the person wants. So to say that, I would always be like, okay, I got a better idea.
Yeah.
Again, wouldn't suggest this, but this is kind of what I used to do. And sometimes it would work in my favor, and sometimes it wouldn't. They'd be
Hmm.
like, no, it's not gonna work because of ABC, which is fine. But that's
Hmm.
how I used to approach things. So again, with this with this whole red tails thing, I just remember like we used to be seriously. I was on that shot for like 3 months.
Hmm.
It's like a 2 second shot.
Hmm.
Like I couldn't point it out to you if I watched the movie. Like I couldn't. Like there's no way. Yeah, so that was that. So Red Tails, that was a funny one. GTA was funny. That was when I was working as a facial animator, and I remember one of my mentors from AM. And this is a thing too. This is how competitive the animation industry is.
Hmm.
I remember, I'm being taught by all these great mentors, who've done
Hmm.
great movies, and you're applying for jobs. And then I remember one day I was in line to get this job. I remember I was just going to meet them. They were having this meet and greet, and I was going to the studio to meet them. The night before, DreamWorks let's go over like a big bunch of their workforce. Some of them were my mentors. So now this turned from me going to a meet and greet to now me losing my job to my mentors who just got let go because they're superstars, right?
Yeah.
They've just been let go. Like any studio with any common sense, let's grab these big time animes that
Yeah.
just got let go. So I've worked with a lot of female mentors. I've lost jobs to female mentors at a young age because that's just the way how life works. But
Yeah.
I remember working on GTA. One of my mentors ended up getting a job there, and he asked me about it, and I'm like, "You sure you wanna work here? Because you worked on all this great stuff. Like this ain't it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he was like, I want to try something new. Great. So he's working and on on GTA, which again I'm not a GTA fan. As you know, GTA is full of a lot of vulgar and whatever content. It is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But one of the scenes in this particular one was no, not GTA. It was Red Dead Redemption. One
Hmm.
of the scenes was like, I guess a woman was somewhat kind of getting assaulted in this game, as I remember.
Hmm.
And this is where I rate him for this because like you got to be self-aware.
Hmm.
They're giving this shot to a girl,
Hmm.
and it was kind of offensive. And you know, bless him, he's like a really like moral guy, and he's like
Hmm.
older guy, but he's like he cares about what people are working on, and he
Hmm.
lost it when he saw that they're giving the shot to a girl because it was offensive shot. And it was just one of the things, just like this is just like in bad taste, and you probably shouldn't give her the shot. So
Yeah.
he spoke up about it, and I found that really like let me look at him in a different way. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
this guy cares. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
he cares. This isn't just a job. He's caring about the people around. And I remember he lasted about a month, and he was like, yeah, I can't do this. I said, I
Yeah.
told you. I was like, this same
I tried to
like
told you.
I tried. It's like I'm here because I got bills to pay. Like this, that's like you up there. Like I don't think this is for you. But I just again, so that was that memory from GTA for that when he came out and we did Red Dead Redemption.
Hmm.
Um, Spider Man was a funny one because that was one where I was like, I really the phrase "failing up" was like a real thing, and I enjoyed the team I worked with and all the other stuff, but it's just other entities that I was just like, man, I gotta start working on my own stuff and betting on myself because this isn't it. And that aspect again, the people I work with were great, the team was great, but again, there's levels to this when it comes to like working in the industry.
I'm sure there's under other industries like this, but in
Yes,
the animation industry, to see people who have like at least 4 years experience and you can't tell that they have 4 years of experience, like what are you doing in the position that you're in? Like
that's another thing
I
too.
feel
Is
like that's crazy to me.
yeah, the whole thing about experience versus tenure is a very slippery slope, and I don't like it. Like if someone's good, they're good. That's it. Just
Yeah.
reward them for being good.
Mhm.
Um, again, but no one's had that conversation. It's
It's
because
like it's like for the people watching, it's like the difference between just being on Earth a certain amount of age and actually have like wisdom that matches your age. like
hmm and
like these people are just existing in the animation industry and
yeah,
just like I have 40 years experience. Like no, you have 40 years just in the industry.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
not experience.
yeah. So there's that too. There's like you come across a lot of that, and it's like, yeah, it's interesting. I come across a lot of that, the good and the bad. Um, I've seen, yeah, this is like even like hop. When you said hop, that's an interesting experience. Um, because I was at Rhythm and Hughes. I almost didn't get that job
Mhm.
because it was the starting date for that job was the same date as my second daughter's birth. So I said to them, "Hey, my wife at the time is expecting at that date. Um, is it okay if I start a different date?" And this is what the woman said to me: "If you can't start that date, you don't get this job." That was it. Luckily, my daughter was premature, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the only reason why I got that job. And it was just like, and at first, when I think about that, I was just like, "It is what it is." I was prepared not to get that job, but now when
Yeah.
I look back at it, and then I find out about history of that person and just all the things that happened there,
Mm-hmm.
there's just a lot of things that are not spoken about because we're on the hamster wheel trying to survive, and we
Yeah.
don't know our leverage or what we can and can't say. There's just a lot, like there's a lot of experiences that I've been through, and I'm like, because one of the
And then
things,
and then the nuance of the American experience of like your healthcare is attached to your job.
like, ask any English person or foreigner, we all say the same thing. When they came out here, we was like, oh yeah, if I need to go to doctors, I'll just fly back home. It's cheaper. Like we were all doing that. Like every person that I bumped into, I was like, yeah. When I first came out here, I was like, nah, I'll fly home, go get my dentist help, all that stuff. We were doing that. It's a real thing. Like it didn't like now. I've got a good job and my health is the best. But like earlier on, I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying that. No, I just go home and I get to go home, spend time with my family, get stuff done, and then come back. Like what are we talking about here? But that's a whole different thing. But so what I was saying about sorry, I said about the experiences. I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, just that there's a lot of things that happen in the industry that's layered, and when you're in it, you don't realize what's going on per se because you don't know who to talk to, you don't know who to trust. So you're thinking, okay, is this normal? And then one of the things I refuse to do, and I think that again might be my upbringing. My first thing was never, oh, it must be racism. I
Mm-hmm.
always refused to go that route
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of kept me. I used to always say, you know what, I'm just not good enough. So that
Mm-hmm.
would fuel me to keep working hard. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was always like, if I was good enough, they wouldn't care what color I am because I'd just be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's some truth to that, and there's some delusion to that, but that was what kept me going, right?
I
That's
mean,
the
on social media, people are like, you need to be delulu is the salulu.
yeah, yeah. But then what happens is, as time goes on, people get older, people start to talk to you and tell you what really went on,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh snap, that's interesting, yeah. And then like, so you start to hear the root as you get older. But again,
Mm-hmm.
it's a circle of life. Like when you're in it, you don't know really what's going on. You try and make your best judgment, or you try and make the best of what you can. But then again, it's only later on people might tell you stuff, but they weren't comfortable telling you back then, and you find out things, and that's
Mm-hmm.
like it's kind of like the double-edged sword of finding out the truth. Sometimes
Yeah.
you wish you didn't know the truth, and you were just like stuck to like, I was delusional, this wasn't good enough, or there was some real
Ignorance is
stuff going
bliss.
on. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what I said. I'm like, there's so many like that. Ignorance is bliss is a bar if you really think about it.
Bro,
like you can apply it to so many
it's
things. And there's
so
the James
many.
Baldwin quote where it's like to be black and aware in America is to be always in a state of rage or something like
Yeah,
that.
honestly, and there's a even to that point, there's you can be aware, but how? What is your reaction? Your reaction to your awareness? To your point, you could be enraged, You
Mhm.
can try and figure out how to game it so
Yeah.
you make it. Like,
Mhm.
how do you navigate that? And not everybody's equipped.
Right.
Like, for me, it's a little easier because I'm on the outside looking in. I'm a
Mhm.
foreigner in this country, and
Mhm.
so I'm seeing things a little bit more clearer than most African Americans because they're in it. To your
Yeah.
point, the ignorance is bliss. I'm seeing the bliss, so I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
is that what we're doing?
Mhm.
Okay, let me
Mhm.
navigate here, and and I can even talk about the privileges of being a foreigner. Like the minute they hear my accent, the amount of times I have heard this, and even now I chuckle. I remember I was going to work, about to get in the elevator, and and this lady, white lady, goes, "You're not from here, are you?" And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "What do you mean? The way you dress?" And I was just like, okay, in her mind, she's picturing what black people dress like, and because I'm not dressing like the stereotypical whatever that means,
Uh-huh.
she was like, "You're not from here, are you?" And I said,
You
"Why?
want
Because
like
the way
bright
you,
colors or something?
no, because the way you dress." And then now I've already spoken, so she can hear I'm not from here. Oh, you're from the UK. The amount of people that are comfortable speaking to British black people about African Americans is astounding.
Mm.
Like some of the
Mhm.
things that I've heard and said is just like, wow, just because of the accent, all of a
And then
sudden now,
imagine the black British people that lean into that.
yeah. So like, and you can ask a lot of black British people that have had the same conversation one point of
Mhm.
time in the time out here, where like I had one person said to me, he's like why are the African Americans so comfortable being dumb? And I was like, I said you just said that out loud, like to me,
Right.
like. But it's like it's just again, these are the privileges I get sometimes. I can get into certain rooms or into conversations
Mhm.
just because of my accent? Or do they find out, oh, they're like, oh, you're not like them? A police officer said that to me when I got pulled over
Mhm.
once. Oh, you're different. Is that what you mean? You're not from here. Okay. Oh, don't worry about it. Go ahead. I didn't get a ticket, but it
Mhm.
was like these are,
Yeah.
and which goes back to the whole basketball thing. When that teacher said that to me, it offended the crap out of me because I was like,
Yeah.
people can go to class and play basketball. Like that is a
Right.
thing that people do. Now you're enabling the problem of athletes not going to class. Like you are enabling that, and that irked
And then
me.
there's sometimes the cognitive dissonance of like you're experiencing this as a foreign black person,
Hmm.
but not making the connection that
Yeah,
black Americans are not having this experience, and that's why.
that
Duh.
was, and again, I go back to that when that guy said to me
Mhm.
when I was watching, and he said to me, "Hey, you had a fire in your life." That was a thing. I was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I'm thinking they're seeing what I'm seeing.
Right.
They're not though." And
Right.
vice versa. Like, and that's the thing
Mhm.
again. We just don't talk enough. We don't have a lot of conversation. We don't speak because again, we're all on this hamster wheel. We're all trying to get here. Everything's moving fast. Like I always tell my friends, like I have to go back home at least once or twice a year just to reset. Because when I
Yeah.
go back home, no one knows who
You
I
just
am.
remember who you are.
Yeah, when we're hard, everybody's like, this is I'm like my friends treat me the same way to treat me. I'm not,
Mhm.
worrying about I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Like everything just slows down for me, and I
Yeah.
chill. I'm like, oh yeah, this is. I remember what it's like just to be silent.
And
Like
like
I'm
growing
saying,
up in a certain generation in America, it's like because I'm an
yeah.
elder millennial, and so it's just
Hmm.
like that hustle culture of like we like elder millennials are like trying to be like let's get a hobby and not try to make money from it, like and be bad at it,
Yes.
like because like from our 20s to mostly in our 20s, it was like hustle culture. You have to have a side hustle. You have to like make
Yeah.
money doing all this stuff, and it's just like, how about you just have fun?
And I find myself. I mean, because of my upbringing of doing certain things,
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of hobbies I enjoy doing, and I'm not trying to get paid. Like even now, when I'm coaching, I do it voluntarily
Mm-hmm.
because I enjoy teaching kids. But I have people come to me, hey, do you do private sessions? I'm like, no, no, no. I want no part of that. I don't want, nope, not interested in doing that. I said, one, you're not gonna like me if I'm a private coach because I do this for real. And two, I'm
Right.
doing this for fun. And like, if you want and I'll be like, and first of all, your child ain't it. Like everybody thinks your child isn't it. I'm sorry. Like they could be it. I don't know. But right now, looking at their age compared to everybody else we're seeing, nah, it's like just let the kid have fun. Because most of the time, it's the parents forcing their kids
Yeah.
to do the thing, and that's the other thing I've noticed too. Like these parents that keep forcing the kids to do stuff, man. You gotta stop doing that first of all. But sometimes you get lucky. Like again, not too my own horn. I recognize that, and I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm gonna make this enjoyable. I know that kid
Yeah.
doesn't want to be here, but okay, how can I make it fun for that child? Because that kid, and then I see a turnaround, and I'm like, oh, I love it here, and they enjoyed it, and I'm like, that was my goal. Just,
Yeah.
like, just to have fun. Like, I
Yeah.
want you to hate it less than you did when you came here. That's what I
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah.
very least, I did the same thing when I was teaching animation. I didn't realize when had my first animation job, I didn't realize the kids in the class had to take the class because it's part of the curriculum.
Oh yeah.
So I've got like 10 kids, only one wants to be an animator, and I'm coming in there, Mr. Animator guy, and I'm like, and I asked like, so who wants to be an animator here? I was like, only one person. I was like, well, why are you taking this class? We have to. Oh, I said, okay, we're changing the way we do this then. We're gonna do it all the assignments in class. I'm gonna walk you through in class. I'm not gonna give you homework because if you want to be a modeler, I'd rather you do your modeling homework because
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able. But I want you to understand what an animator goes through so you can model better. So for instance,
Yeah.
when you do all these freaking whack vertices that we can't and all these gear that we can't move, that's a problem because let me show you as an animator, we would tell you there's not enough vertices here. This
Yeah.
armor, all this gear doesn't make sense because we have to make it move. You're
Right.
gonna understand the thought process of an animator, and then you can understand like, how to better model for things that have
Right.
to move. And so I started doing that because like these kids, I'm killing them because they don't care about animation. Like they're forced to take this class, so I had to quickly adapt and say, we're not gonna do it the usual way. We do everything in class. You have no homework for this class, other than the animator who wants animator. I'm gonna give you something different because you're trying to be this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta be understand too, like
Yeah.
who's in your
And
class. Who's
and in education, that's called differentiated learning.
oh,
But even though I call myself a black woman animator, I'm a modeler. And
mm,
so what I realized in school is like, it's like, what I tell people, all animation is tedious. What tediousness do you enjoy? I do not enjoy
yes,
the tediousness of animation. I
right.
enjoy the tediousness of moving,
Versus
vertices.
yes.
And so, like, I would do an animated project, and I'm like, this could be pushed further, but I don't want to.
Mm.
Like, so I'm not an animator.
To your point though, it is every discipline in the arts is tedious. Which
Mhm.
one do you enjoy the most?
Yes.
And I'm not like I love modeling. Then like, but the tedious of the detail part, I was like, yeah, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm not gonna do this no more. Like that
Right.
little wrinkle and all the other stuff. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the vertices, the loops, and all that
Yeah.
stuff you have to be
Good
account for.
topology.
Yeah, the part. Oh my life, I was like, yeah. I was like, you can have that. Like I made it without you turning on the lines and all that stuff. It looks great. Forget what you're talking about. Like let's move
Yeah.
on. But again, yeah, it's like what same with rigging. I wanted to be a rigger,
Oh
and then I
no,
realized I was like, nope,
that
this is
is
not for
not my
me.
ministry.
Nope, it's
With
not for
the
me.
art, because back when I was in school, it was the art of rigging book. I
Oh
did
yes.
I did the legs, and then I went to the arms, and the legs broke. I'm out. Like,
that
why did the legs break?
that auto rigging book made its rounds. Everybody was on that book because that was like the Bible. All of a sudden, it was just like, yeah,
I like, this is not for me.
it was
If you
fool's gold.
Because it's like rigging is like similar to anybody who's ever taken a coding class, and you could literally, like, your code could not work, and you could literally like copy and paste it, and then it would start working. Like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, or
which
it's just
brings
like a comma that, like, no.
which brings me to this new thing where they're trying to have everybody do anything. Let me tell you something. I'm an animator. I've been an animator for 20 some years. That's what I do. That's what I like to do. Don't tell me I have to start coding stuff. I don't like doing that. Like if my day is spent more time doing anything but animation, I'm unhappy. I'm gonna tell you, I was like, yeah, I don't like doing this. Yeah, we can talk about, oh, you'll be helping the team. Maybe you should hire more people for that job because that seems like a company
Because you're
problem.
already not paying me enough to do
Yeah,
my current job.
job. Yeah, I'm like, come on now, we're not doing this. So again, uh, I make jokes about this. Like again, there's phases. When you're starting, you're excited, you love, and you work on this, and then you start to get to you're an adult now.
Uh,
You got things to do, but then you start to say, wait a second. why am I working on the weekends again? Why am I doing 15-hour days and getting only paid
And
two
all of a
hours?
sudden you got boundaries.
Yeah, it's like, yep. All of a sudden, it's like, so. But again, it's easy to me to say because I've been through it. When you're
Right.
just starting, you're hearing this and you're like, what is he talking about? I got bills to pay, especially now. If you live in Los Angeles right now, I don't know how you're doing it because, yeah, it's, yeah, I don't know how you're doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I sympathize with you because
Hmm.
it's rough out here. But at the same token, you do have a little bit more opportunities worldwide to work remotely, and
Hmm.
don't be scared to travel to work too. Like I
Yeah.
know a lot of people that won't take jobs in a different country. What take like
There, when
it's,
I, because my first job was in Korea.
mhm,
When I, because there was a Canadian guy, he was Jamaican, but he was working he was the overseas director for the Cleveland show,
mhm,
and he was like, there was this cartoon that existed where it was like a picture of America and like all these arrows going to like Los Angeles, and
mhm.
then there was like a picture of like people from like Canada and all the like they're all going to other places in the world, and so like all the people in America like go to Los Angeles, and then everybody else goes to like everywhere else. Like,
Yeah, I don't think it's so funny because when people find out what I do, and they always say, "Oh, you're in the right place for it." And in my head, I was like, "Nah, I could probably move somewhere else and do this." And like, there's no reason for me to actually be. I
Canada,
mean, yeah, I mean, I'm here because my kids are here, so I'm waiting for them to grow up. But
yeah,
I always tell my kids, as soon as my eldest turns 18, I'm out. Like, you can keep the house, but I'm out of here. I'm letting you know that now. So you guys better figure it out. I'm giving you all the
right,
tools to be successful. But it's yeah, I'm like I've traveled, I've seen the world. I'm like, there's places I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I live here. You know what I'm saying? Like
As an American living in South Korea, it was like because I don't like obviously as an American there is an arrogance that you naturally have, but I don't think I was like an arrogant. Like
hmm
I went to their country and was like, "This is y'all country,
yeah.
y'all don't gotta be beholden to me."
hmm
But it was like an eye opener of like there are multiple ways to live correctly,
Yes.
not just the American way. And I'm a foreigner in their country and I have free healthcare and I can't get that
Mm. Like I
like,
always say, happiness is relative. Your experience is relative. Like, and I think traveling should open your eyes to that. Like, if you're going there with open eyes, like it's funny. Like my daughters, especially my daughters, they love everything K-pop, Japanese. Like
yeah.
I sent my kid to Japan last year
Mhm.
by herself because one, she's 14. I'm like, you need to start figuring out life. You need to figure out how to live by yourself. You gotta go out there.
And
So she went
Japan
out
is the
there.
place to do it. They're
Yeah,
safe.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm like, and it helped her a lot. I was like,
When I was
thank
in
goodness.
Korea, there was 5-year-olds riding a bus by themselves.
That's why I've been trying to tell my parents. I'm like, why are you guys over here trying to protect my kids? Like, you had us travel 15, 20 miles by myself with my two younger siblings to go to school every day. They can do it too. Like
Mhm.
the world is not as big as bad as you think it is. Yes, there are bad places, but
Mhm.
the only difference is that we have social media and everybody's covering it. We just weren't covering it back then. There
Yeah.
was weirdos just as bad out there, just that we didn't cover it. So I
Yeah.
always try and put that in perspective. But yeah, to your point, yeah, you'll see 5-year-olds. I mean, I see 5-year-olds out here get on the train, but
Mhm.
everybody's like, "Oh my god, you can't do that." I'm like, "Oh, come on." What I say, which is probably like this, I was like, "You guys are arrogant. What makes your kids so special that they're gonna kidnap them? Chill out." Yeah, I'm terrible, but I was like, "Your kid ain't it. They're not kidnapping your kids. Right? Relax."
Mhm.
But at the same token, it's like you're bombarded with all these visuals. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to like sift through it, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like you want your kids to grow up, you want your kids to learn, experience things. And I definitely
Mhm.
think traveling is a huge benefit. Like you might not like it or it's going to be different. As long as you're open, you're going to learn things about you,
Yeah.
about yourself as well. It's like what you do and what you don't like, how you interact with in a different country. What is your survival instincts? You know what I'm
And
saying? Like,
for me as an American, I'm like Americans need to live somewhere else, not just visit. Like,
yes,
because
that's a
now
big
it's
difference.
popular to have the gap year now. In your gap year, go live somewhere. Because I
Yeah,
feel like I feel like Americans can't get the full experience if they just visit. Like,
tourist
live.
areas. Yeah, don't go to tourist areas. Actually, go somewhere where no tourists, and then just go and just live. Be with the people. Like I said, yeah, like I said, having my kids go to Japan was a great thing for them. Um, my daughter, she wants to go to Korea for a trip, so that's something I gotta, because she's big on K-pop and the whole
Hmm.
culture. So that's something I'm gonna prepare for her. But yeah, and they've been to England, they've been to Japan. Where else have I brought them? There's one more place I'm missing. But I try and bring them different places, so they can experience the world and not be confused thinking. Because I always have to tell them too, the life you're living is not what everybody's living. That's another
Yeah.
thing too. I'm trying to explain. I'm like, yeah, you are pretty privileged kids. I'm made sure you've been given everything. You haven't had to struggle for nothing, which is
Yeah.
also another topic I'm curious in, because this whole thing about like you have to struggle. No, you don't. Like
Right.
we had to struggle. That was our upbringing. I don't think everybody else has to struggle as long as you teach them to be appreciative and just kind of give them some kind of
Hmm.
education on life.
Yeah.
This whole story, which is I kind of get tired of the whole they came from nothing and became something. Okay, what about the people who came from something and became something? Like those stories exist too. Like,
Yeah.
come on, it's just you have to be creative in how to tell that story, and that goes
Hmm.
into writing, and there's a lot of bad writing, but that's a
Hmm.
whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
again, there's too many POVs, there's too many ways to tell the story. Um, let's let, let- let's let's start thinking outside the box a little, just in general. Mhm.
What do you love about animation?
Honestly, the fact that like we are creating something that doesn't exist, right? You're
Hmm.
talking about if it's 2D, whether it's 3D, it doesn't exist. You have someone comes with an idea, someone puts the idea on paper,
Hmm.
someone concept designs it, someone animates if it's 2D. If it's
Hmm.
3D, someone creates the model, someone creates the rig, someone creates the textures. This thing now exists. Then you
Right.
put it up in front of somebody, and you've actually fooled them or to believing that this character is real, that this world is real.
Hmm.
That is an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
It takes a team of people, it takes a bunch of geniuses in their own right to make this. That's what I love about it. Is the fact that somebody can watch a show, a commercial that didn't exist and be like, recite it. They sing the song. They talk
Hmm.
about that character. They want to dress up as that character at Comic Con or Halloween or whatever it may be. Like
Hmm.
it puts a smile on people's faces. It puts a frown on people's faces. It makes people cry. Like
Yeah.
that's what I love about animation and art in general. It's like how it affects everybody differently, but at the end of the day, it was created from an idea or from nothing, and now it exists.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Like, so that's what I love about it. Like, that's what keeps me going. Like that to me is like someone said to me, I think I mentioned before, you've worked on stuff that's in history now, and it's gonna be here when you're gone.
Mhm.
Like like that's pretty amazing. We
Yeah.
don't talk about that enough, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, in the day,
Yeah.
that's what I look at it. That's what I love about animation.
If somebody was producing a documentary about you, what things would you want them to highlight about your life outside of your work in animation?
I would like them to highlight just my path
Hmm.
and my struggles getting here, like the things I had to do to get here, the things like I was very big on my standards and morals, what I would accept and what I wouldn't accept.
Hmm.
You know, um, like you can say whatever you want about me, but like I said what I said and was not apologetic. I didn't apologize about anything I did or did because I did it with intention.
Yeah.
And I think more people need to start thinking that way. Like when you
Yeah.
do something, we're all gonna make mistakes and whatever it is, but like I just don't like when people do stuff and then turn around and say, "Oh, I'm sorry I did that." No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught, right? That's so I don't believe in apologies. Like everybody does something for a reason. There's an intention behind it, right? Just own it, and that's the way. That's one of the things that I live my life like. Every move I make, I did on purpose.
Hmm.
It is what it is. Whether you like it or not, good or bad, like I did it on purpose. I didn't do
Yeah.
anything by accident. So that's kind of how, yeah, that would be my documentary.
If anybody wants to follow you on social media, where can they follow you or get in contact
S-
with you?
so on Instagram it is G1 Tunes. That's my art one. I have so when I first started social media, I didn't know. I thought you had to have one for everything. So I have my art one, which is G1 Tunes.
Yeah.
I have my photography one, which is G1 Tunes Photography. But you can find them all from the G1 Tunes one, and then I have my DJ one. There's also DJ G1 Tunes, but for the most part, yeah, everything's on social media. If I do post stuff, because now with AI, I'm like, should I post stuff? I don't know what's going
Right,
on.
right, right.
But they can find me there, or you can find my LinkedIn if you need be, or for the most part, especially if you have any questions to ask me, you can hit me up because I'm the kind of person, if someone has a question, I try and answer it, or I try and find someone who can answer that question for me.
Yeah.
Because again, we tell people to ask for help or do this and do that, and I hate people who do that when they say, "Oh, contact me." And when you contact me, contact them, they don't reply. Yes,
Yeah.
everybody is busy,
For
but I would
me,
say,
I'm gonna try you.
yeah,
So if
no,
all these people in this room you told us to contact me, Deborah is gonna.
yeah, because at least what I'll do is I'll be like, "Hey, I'm busy right now. Remind me in 2 days, or you know what, get back to me. But make sure you get back to me so
Yeah.
that you can remind me that you asked me this. Let me find out what I can do for you."
Mhm.
Um, that's the very least I will always do that. I just hate. I've been in too many situations where people are like, "Yeah, just contact me," and I contact them and I don't hear from them, and
Yeah.
then you see them and they act like this didn't happen, and that goes to me that my whole experience being out here, especially in this industry. It's okay, it is okay to say that you can't help me. I respect that,
Man.
because not everybody can. You can't, like, there's this whole facade that people put on. It's like that whole Hollywood facade. Yeah, I know people. No, you don't. It's okay if you don't know people. Like, it's really is okay. Like, not everybody knows people. I'm not gonna judge you because you don't know nobody. You
Right.
know how this energy works. But everybody puts on that facade like, oh, I'm important. I know somebody. Okay, that's
Yeah.
that works for you. But again,
Mhm.
I'm of the people. I've been there. I've been through it. I understand. Like,
Yeah.
again, one thing, like one response for somebody can go a long way. Whether it's like looking at somebody's work or giving them feedback. And
Yeah.
mind you, if it is feedback, it is going to be honest feedback.
Mhm.
It's going to be industry standard. I will take into account where you're at, and I will let you know where you need to go.
Mhm.
But I don't have time to be telling you lies because it doesn't benefit you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
I want to thank you for allowing me to highlight you. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed this conversation. It's very refreshing. It's a good conversation. I enjoy what you're doing, and we need more of this, like for sure.
Mhm.
Right.
And to everyone out there, I want you to like so I know it's real. Comment to me how you feel. Subscribe to Citadel and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.